Smith has some room. No, brought down nicely. Ball's down, and that's Urlacher with it. Down to the 50. He's got to beat the quarterback. Hesitates, and he's going to go all the way.
This is 365 Sports.
Just outside the 35-yard line. Peterson, the freshman, cutting back. He's going to get there. First touchdown of his career, Adrian Peterson.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Barner is back deep again for the Ducks, and this is a beautiful punt. Back to the 15, running backwards, loose, free ball, touchdown, LSU. Matthew picks it up and runs in, and LSU strikes.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Favre rolling and throwing under pressure, and it's intercepted. Dion, he may score right away. It is Sanders for the touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
White dunks up the middle. Head right in the open field. Head right to the house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Wednesday, April the 2nd. Paul Catalina to my left and Craig Smoak back in the studio today. To my right, Garrett Ross is running the mothership. Is Andrew here, jiu-jitsu?
Yes, he is.
So I haven't a Twitter name for him. What did I use, Garrett? I did a deal about our show and a couple of things. Bruce Feldman coming on today at 5, and I made up a Twitter handle for Andrew.
It says Kung Fu Jersey for life.
I think I hit on all of it, except it's not Kung Fu, it's jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Is what Andrew can do.
Jiu-jitsu is just a longer thing to put in a handle, though.
Yeah. So that's Andrew Valet. Embry's not here, but he's always here. One time I remember when I said that, when he first started working for us, Jack kind of scolded me. He said, hey, man, don't ever tell anybody that somebody's not here. We can work from pretty much anywhere. We've learned that now for the last 5 years. And so Emery will be working throughout the show on 365 tonight, 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. So remember the Fran Brown and Deion Sanders, they back and forth, hey, we wouldn't mind getting together. And then there was a few others that said, Mike Gundy brought up the fact that maybe Oklahoma State, one year they play or go to, for 3 practices at Norman or vice versa, or they do it over 3 weeks, a couple of weeks, take a break, come back again. And then the NCAA said no. And the reason was, and it made a little bit of sense to me, that, hey, a lot of people are already into their spring drills. They don't have time to regroup and maybe add some of these scrimmages. So Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State football coach, I'm not sure how they have the grounds to say you can't do it. Like, if somebody just goes and does it, what are they going to do to them?
I mean, this is a fair point. I don't think Mike read the entire thing where he, it wasn't about not doing it and not ever. It was just that the NCAA, their whole job is to legislate fairness, right? And I'm no fan of the way that they do it, but in this particular case, I do think they have a good point. Like, had you come up with this not in the middle of spring football, probably gets approved and needs to be hashed out. But if you do it in the middle, and some people are maybe almost done by the time that they would even get to schedule it, right? Because you only have so many. Everybody starts spring football at a different time. Another thing that might need to be legislated, because, if you're going to be like the NFL and do OTAs, you should do OTAs, everybody does them all at the same time, right? Or relatively. Like, you have like a couple week window.
The team that has that early game sometimes starts a week early.
You get some flexibility in it, but it's all like the same 2 or 3 weeks. That's probably something else they need to do to make sure that this is balanced out. But yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, like if they just called up Oklahoma and Venables said, yeah, I mean, they could just get on the bus and go there tomorrow. And what is the NCAA going to do?
Yeah, I don't know, Craig. This is not Yeah, I think that they will get to this when the calendar is going to change at some point just because of the changes in all the rules and what's being added. But your thoughts about, I like the fact that Gundy's, something different other than, okay, we can't do it.
Good to be back, and now I'm trying to figure out how to walk through landmines without trying to compare this to a political tactic of, what are you going to do about it? Like, I'm just going to do it, and you can't do anything about it. And that's the first thing I thought of was that's certainly a take and a way to I guess combat the idea is, what if we do it anyways? What are you actually going to do about it? But I think that would be too great a risk on his part at least, and that would likely come with some pretty heavy punishments, and you would find out very quickly what they can do about it. So they spoke. He doesn't necessarily have to like it. Clearly he doesn't like it. And so for this year, we don't get these spring crossover practices, which I don't know how we were going to really manage to do that when it's April the 2nd already.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they were expecting this to be and when, but the idea for this year was kind of hinging directly on Deion and Fran Brown and whether that was going to work at all. And so since that's been shot down, that answers the question for everybody else, including Mike Gundy, and they can't do it this year. But I suppose if he wants to run the risk or try to test the NCAA's law enforcement capabilities or rule enforcement, then go right ahead and drive up to Norman with a bus full of Cowboys, and you practice and see what happens. And I would be very interested in him doing that. So I want him to challenge this. But I don't think that he will, and I think that this is something that will happen eventually. But I think it probably was a bit too fast, too furious for them to wrap their head around it for this year and green light it across the board. So I think we're going to get this. I think it's inevitable. It's a shame it's not this year, but it's coming. There's too many people talking about it for it not to.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like this has got any evil to it. It's trying to maybe mix things up. So if, in fact, I think it'll be here by next spring. I think they'll do this by next spring. My question is, if you could do it, when would you rather do it if you had a choice? In the spring or in the when you start working out towards the regular season in August? Does it matter?
I would have to ask a football coach.
Yeah.
I don't know that answer as well as somebody who actually does that for a living would do it.
I would rather see it in the spring just because at the end of the fall we get games. At the end of the spring, we get nothing.
Well, the whole point of spring is to be like an appetizer that carries you over until the main course in August. So you can start to have media days and practices in July, and that takes out July. But, if you just made July or June your spring football, then that leaves a pretty big gap all throughout spring. And, I think I would prefer to see it in spring and then have your little bit of a break and then start it back up. But, as far as what's best for a football team to do, I have absolutely no earthly idea. I would think maybe doing it later where you really ramp up those scrimmages against competition would have you hitting the floor ready to roll in week one. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. That'd be a good question for whichever coach we talk to next.
Well, we'll have a few. Mark Daniels, by the way, the voice of UCF. We could check in on how Scott Frost's first couple of weeks of spring football, how that's going. Reed Geddes, former Houston guard. My goal this week is we've had somebody that covers Houston on. We've also had all four teams covered. Remember on Monday, we had all four teams with an analyst, columnist, somebody that's a broadcaster. And then yesterday, Galen Robinson Jr. was great. University of Houston tweeted that out. He was fantastic. And then today, Reed Geddes, former guard at Houston, will join us. John Cooper on the NFL draft. And then Bruce Feldman from theathletic.com in the 5 o'clock hour had his first-round mock draft based on conversations, not with NFL personnel people or scouts, but with college coaches. And that will be someone who we featured today at around 5 o'clock. And he has the first round mocked out, and we will discuss that with him. And then SMU's football schedule. We've been trying to do that now for a while, but it's Craig's deal, and so we didn't do it, Craig, on Monday or Tuesday. We will do it with you today. Paul's Top 5 also will be a part of the show.
Top 5 Val Kilmer movies.
Oh, my God, Craig. Did you see that when I tweeted it out, or did you already see that?
I saw it before you tweeted it out. And, it's a shame. I'm a big Val Kilmer fan. He's probably my favorite actor. Like, if I just had to put a top 5 together, he's right up there near the top. I think it's easy to default to Denzel or Tom Hanks, which all due respect, they'd be on my list too, or like whoever's in that Leo, so on and so forth. But Val was different. Like, he probably should have been a bigger star, but for a variety of reasons he wasn't. He was still a huge star, but he could have been bigger. I think you know what I mean by that, Paul.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of great movies. You probably think that based on my Twitter avatar or, you know, whatever little collectibles and things that I have, that it's all based around Tombstone. It's really not. My first watching Val Kilmer moments was watching him in Willow as Mad Mardigan, and I watched that movie probably 50 times with my little cousins growing up at my grandparents' house. And so, yeah, I watched him in that movie tons and tons of times, and then Tombstone and Top Gun and everything else that followed that. Yeah, what a legend. Loved him. Thought he was a great actor. Hated that we didn't get more out of the last part of his career because he just couldn't talk. He couldn't talk. He had so many health issues. It really robbed him of probably some incredible movies and performances. But for what he did have to showcase, he had a lot of memorable moments and roles. And, yeah, very sad. But he's been dealing with so much for so long. I know he's been, like, painting and stuff to keep up, you know, the time these last few years, but wasn't surprised to see that. I'll put it that way, but still was sad to see that.
By the way, Kim Coulter, I want the hat that Craig's wearing. That's the one that we wanted. That's the one we thought we were going to get a whole box of them, but we didn't. So I just sent a note to Corey at Rogue Media Network to see if he could help us out.
He and I actually had to talk about it this morning.
The hats?
So, yeah, the hats.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So
good.
Anyway.
Well, let me go back to Val Kilmer because I haven't been able to say anything. I love the guy. I did not realize that in Top Gun, the second one, that AI was part of the voice of Val Kilmer during that movie. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
Because he's had so much.
Yeah, because he couldn't talk otherwise.
Yeah, he can't. Yeah. He's been battling the cancer and stuff, and so I just think Denzel's my favorite actor, but then Val Kilmer would be number two.
He probably had this period in the late 90s where he kind of got into like really believing he was this big time movie star and not like he, by his own admission, like he made mistakes in his career. Like he did Batman Forever because like he's like, well, how am I not going to do Batman? It's such big money. And then like he got there and realized like, oh well, I didn't go to Juilliard to do this, but yeah, everything. I mean, he had a lot. He has a very long credit, and there's a lot of movies that a lot of people probably haven't seen or didn't come out that good, or he just shouldn't have been in. Like it was to me beneath him, like his skill level. But that's how Hollywood works. But man, when Val Kilmer hit, it hit, man. Like you think about like. I have a top five later today, and I'll just pick a movie that's not on it. But I really enjoyed a movie he did with Michael Douglas called The Ghost in the Darkness. So they're hunting this like rabid lion.
Based on a true story.
Yeah, it's based on a true story. And man, like he was so damn good in that movie. And that's one that's not even on my list. The Doors is not on my list, on my top five. About Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
You would talk about inhabiting a role. He really did. And just so many good ones.
Well,
so many good ones.
The chat room, Val Kilmer was great in Top Gun, but he might have been better in The Saint and Heat.
Yeah. The Saint. The Saint, I always go back and forth on. Like, I don't think it was his fault. He was really good in it. I think the script has problems, but yeah.
Okay. Tombstone. Tombstone in my top five all time. I'm your Huckleberry. So some of you are all reacting to the Val Kilmer. Paul's going to have his top five on Val Kilmer as well.
I will recommend this out there so that people who don't make it to the top five today, there's a movie on there I don't think many people have seen, like relative to Top Gun or Top Gun Maverick, or he's only in one scene in Top Gun Maverick, but like some of the big ones. But Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is him and Robert Downey Jr. And when you talk about like unrelentingly funny, he is hilarious in it. I mean, and so if you think about like he's funny in Tombstone in like a scary way because he's intimidating. He's Doc Holliday, and at any moment if you throw down, you're going to get shot.
Right.
But in this movie, he is just a smart ass and so funny.
Julie Copeland, love Val Kilmer as well. My husband and I saw him at Daryl Hannah in Albuquerque airport one day. Really fun. My favorite movie he was in is The Saint. So
yeah,
there we are with some of the feedback from everybody. I bought you, Craig, a picture of him, did I not, in the movie Tombstone that I found up in West Texas on the way up or maybe it might have been Italy that I saw in one of those big country type stores, the convenience stores that have so much to get done. Also today, Chris Beard's not going anywhere. Ole Miss, he's fine. He's not going to leave. There were thoughts that, maybe A&M without Buzz Williams, now he's at Maryland or going to Maryland, that maybe that would be a possibility. He's a UT grad. Darrell Royal was an Oklahoma grad, but he went to Texas and had a great career, but that was many, many years ago. So Ole Miss doesn't have to worry about that. And Buzz Williams, Craig, we had that, of course, while you were gone, and he's now at Maryland because Kevin Willard bolted for Villanova.
Yeah, I mean, just to wrap up our RIP Val Kilmer, that was one that, I wasn't surprised to see, but was sad to see nonetheless. But I hope he's doing better and talking fully and singing and really flexing his full muscles that he hadn't been able to flex for a very long time. And, Tombstone will always be one of my favorites. But that's not surprising about Chris Beard. I don't know what he would gain by trying to go to Texas A&M that wouldn't be looked upon as like some sort of like revenge against Texas, because otherwise, like, it's really a lateral move. I mean, why would you do it outside of if you just really wanted to be in the state, but then also if you really just wanted to be in a bitter rival with Texas? Because I don't think that, I'm sure if you really broke down the resources, like, does A&M have more money than Ole Miss? Yeah, probably. Is like some facility probably slightly better or something? Yeah, sure. But I think, like, in regards to the have or have-nots between those two programs, there's very little separating Ole Miss and Texas A&M, especially with what Ole Miss just did in the tournament, right? So I think that would have been a sideways move, and I think one that would have probably messed more with the Texas part of his story in a negative way that I don't think he really wants, nor would Texas probably want to see either. I don't think a lot of their fans are keen on seeing him go suit up in College Station. But that would have been really interesting, and yet I'm not surprised. I just don't think that he seemed like the guy that was keen to go rattle that cage, and especially when you've already, had a team now that you've been building up for a couple years, make a little bit of a run. What's the point in moving again to a place that's not going to be that much of an upgrade? It's not like you're going to some basketball. It's not like North Carolina, the blue blood. That's the dream job for everybody. So, yeah, this is not surprising to me. He's doing a good job at Ole Miss, and A&M will have to look elsewhere. But I was surprised to see Buzz Williams leave. Like, when that went down, I admittedly hadn't kept a lot of tabs on the ins and outs of his relationship, and obviously you had Trev Alberts come in there, and so anytime there's a newer AD, there's always some things that can move around. But I don't know. I really wasn't paying attention or very well aware of that possibility, and so then that popped, and I was just like, damn. And I know y'all probably had the tweet about like all of the changes A&M's had, which is pretty crazy that they've been going through that, because you think money solves everything, and instead it's like it's not solving the problem of getting coaches to stick and land. So I'm very curious about who they go after. Obviously, you kick the tires on Beard just to see what he says, but I'm not surprised at all that it was a no.
Buzz Williams in his career, he was an assistant for a long, long time. Eventually had a year or two with New Orleans, then an assistant at Marquette. Then he took over Marquette. He was there for like 6 or 7 years. Then went to Virginia Tech. He was there for 5 or 6 years. Then he went to A&M, and he was there for 5 or 6 years. That's kind of his M.O., and now he's at the University of Maryland with the Terrapins. And now A&M continues their search for a head coach. Jaden Quintus, Arizona State, had ACL surgery, repaired it. Hell of a player. I mean, he is really good, and now he enters the portal. And I don't know about his recovery as far as where he'll be when they start working out. And, they're working all the time now, but when they start to get really locked in, maybe in September, October, but projected as a number or a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft, not this summer, but next, and now has entered the portal.
Yeah, and he's going to do that thing where he looks at both options, but that's going to be an interesting pickup for someone, if he comes out healthy, supposed to be full go in September. And Arizona State, I did the Big 12 college basketball offseason things. If you had to pick a coach on the hot seat in the Big 12, I think Bobby Hurley's at the top of it. There were rumblings that he might be on his way out the door, and that didn't happen. This offseason, but he also, Bobby Hurley whatever happens, the athletic director that's there now, not the person that hired him. And so they've got to get good because, again, if you don't get good in a hurry and losing a player with this kind of potential and talent, not going to help them. But that is also coaches who are successful are losing players like this too.
I think Dillingham may want to bring him in as a defensive end before he tries. Hey, would you want to play football with us? He's a 6. He got a wingspan of a 7'3" basketball player. The wing, Ashley Hodge, that's like a wet dream to him. Is where he loves wingspan, and so a 7'3" body wingspan for Jaden Quaintus, and now he leaves, or at least apparently might be leaving Arizona State. Now, Dallin Hall, BYU, pretty good player. They had a great run. He enters the portal, and so there's another name. Listen, there's like probably 100 guys that entered the portal. These are just some that make sense. Some of them are part of the Big 12, and also there's some other bigger names that at times when they do leave, we bring them up. But that was one that also came down today, Dallin Hall, the guard from BYU.
Well, BYU, they're not losing guys because they, had this great season and guys are looking for other opportunities. They're losing guys because they've got a roster coming in already that is going to push. And he was already kind of a rotational player, but he's a pretty decent three-point shooter, so he'll have a lot of value out there on the transfer market. But they've got a roster coming in that is very expensive, and they are going for it. So if you are someone who, like him, is a 3-year player for them who's going to play even less, you kind of get in the portal because there's guys who had good minutes that are not going to get them now with the roster that's coming in for BYU.
Yeah, and he had already been seeing his minutes cut back and kind of lost his spot. And I know that he was looked at as a leader for them in some capacity and a guy who the locker room listened to. And I remember reading a story I don't know, it was a few days ago. It's weird that I see his name as like a deja vu moment, but about a locker room speech he gave when they were playing Houston. So it's just, days later, here I am, and here he is transferring. I feel like that's kind of college sports nowadays. What this great moment, and then a week later, the guy's in the transfer portal. But no, like he apparently, was a bit of a leader and was seeing like his minutes cut back and all of that. So, yeah, I don't think it's a surprise, especially with how high-profile Kevin Young and BYU's recruiting is right now. That just seems like it's going to be probably the case for him and some others, but at most schools across the country. I mean, I don't even know how to react to the transfer portal anymore. It's just like you just open it up and names come pouring in, and every once in a while there's a name that you really go, wow. But then most of the time you look at him, you look into him, and you go, oh, well, he lost his starting job, or, oh, he's not playing as much, or, oh, this guy this 5-star just committed, and he's not starting next year, so of course you're going to lose even more. So, yeah, I think it's, notable to highlight the names and all that, but what it all means in the end, I have no idea, especially right now, so good luck to him.
I think the bigger thing to me is I look at the transfer portal and, like, the inverse now. How many people did you keep? Like, who's coming back? And then, because that's how it is in professional sports too. Like, I want to know who's coming back that's good, who's coming back that you couldn't replace, like you'd like to replace but you couldn't, and they're your best option.
A lot of times people look at the free agents you signed rather than the ones you kept.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, you look at the free agents. So, if I'm like in baseball, I look at the Red Sox and go, okay, they've got these guys coming back. Well, would like to get better at this position, but there's nobody real out there they can go get outside of like a huge blockbuster trade, so that's going to have to do. And then that's what I look at more. And then with college, I've had to make myself look at it the same way because it's really easy to look and be like, oh, look at this guy. He was a 5-star recruit 3 years ago. Like, yeah, but if he hasn't seen the field in 3 years and he's a 5-star, was he really ever a 5-star truly? Or is he the bust of that class? Because there's only like 25 or so 5-stars every year. So
yeah, I think anytime there's a new coach too, he's got a coach who's just entering his second year. Kevin Young's going to put his fingerprints all over this offseason. He did a bunch, prior to the season, obviously, but now he's really going to, make it his team. So they're going a different direction. This isn't the guy you signed up to play for. This isn't the guy that you were thriving under the previous couple of years like you were with Mark Pope. So, you take that into account as well. I think anytime you got a coaching change, there's going to be transfers, good players, average players, whatever. So for a variety of reasons, this doesn't seem like a big shocker. And again, good luck to him wherever he lands. With all these guys, I maintain that.
All right, there's a picture of Ren Baker, the West Virginia AD, and Ross Hodge, former head coach at North Texas, and they're headed home to almost heaven, West Virginia. That's the Lear, the Jet. They take back to Morgantown. He'll start his career now, get introduced and all of that. Last night, North Texas, where Ross Hodge was coaching and did a great job, lost to UC Irvine in the semifinals, and so they are out, but that was his last game. That's why now he's headed to Morgantown with the AD and family to go be introduced to the Mountaineers fans.
Semifinals of what?
Of the NIT. Thank you,
NIT,
Craig.
yeah.
They are. By the way, I've always thought UC Irvine's mascot is one of the best ones. You know what they are, right? The Anteaters.
Oh my God!
Oh, it's one of the best ones. In the logo or whatever, the mascot, the graphic is really cool too.
The mascot is Peter.
What do you mean?
Peter the Anteater.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mascot.
Yeah, I just think that's you have bulldogs and lions and bears, oh my, and all that. But I've always liked UC Irvine, so they are in the championship game of the NIT after beating North Texas 69-67 last night.
Well, I mean, West Virginia needs something, right? They need a little
boy
scoop of joy and excitement, and so hopefully this is a hire that can bring some of that. I mean, there's probably going to be some shallow waters or a little tough to navigate early on, I would think, just because you just did this a year ago. And you just said, like, hey, Darian DeVries, like, man, we're all in, buddy. Like, hell yeah, go Mountaineers. And then, like, he just leaves. So, like, now you got a new guy. It's like, hell yeah, man, let's go Mountain. And you got to do it all over again. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of apprehension of just, like, let's see how this plays out. But at the same time, from all indications, he looks like a really good coach. Obviously, Ren Baker dipping into the UNT tree is not so surprising, but that's been a very successful tree. So, hopefully this is a guy who can build something in West Virginia, be around for what he's building, and, just inject some good vibes into that program and into that school and get them on, track to just being able to enjoy the ride and support the ride rather than hating that the ride was so abrupt or that the ride went off the rails as early as it did or what have you that they've been dealing with here as of late. So, I think that's a nice hire on paper, and it's obviously a big hire for Ren Baker because it's a second basketball hire already. So he kind of needs this one to be effective.
By the way, somebody asked about who who UC Irvine will play. They're going to play UT Chattanooga. The Moccasins beat Loyola Chicago. That game's on Thursday night for the NIT championship. Craig, you're right. I mean, you got to believe in Ren Baker. I mean, you want to, and I do. I think he's going to be fine. He's picked good people. The problem is they haven't been able to keep him. Neil Brown, he gave him a chance. The first year it looked like, okay, some people wanted him out, right? And then he had a pretty good year. What did they do? Win like 9 games, and then last year they fell back again, and now they bring back one of the big names in West Virginia football history in Rich Rodriguez. So I get an email on the replays that we have on YouTube's 365 Sports. When somebody makes a comment in the during a segment that we put up or even a full show, I'll get an email. I'm not even sure how that all started, but I'll get an email. We got an email when we did the interview 2 weeks ago, remember, with Cordell Stewart and also Mason Crosby. DCB Channel 1619. I enjoy the content when 365 Sports covers Colorado, not just prime, without the skepticism and with the celebration. In other words, we don't just go up and down the roller coaster with the way we cover Colorado, and he was complimenting our coverage.
Well, and I think also it's not just all about Dion all the time.
Yeah.
That's part of what he just said there is it's not just focused strictly on Dion because there is a program beyond the head coach, believe it or not, right? Sometimes you have to rub your eyes and you sure based on the way they're portrayed, but yeah, there is a lot of personality and character and others voices around Colorado football. So yeah, I appreciate that, and that's a guy who's very polarizing, but it was just refreshing to get a different take on something Colorado and have it, especially from two guys who lived, breathed, and sweated and bled Colorado football the way that those two guys did. So yeah, that was a very cool opportunity that the Big 12, however you felt about the event and like everything about it, like that was really cool on them to deliver those guys there at the end of our little stay.
All right, so we are almost midway through this 3 o'clock hour. A lot to get to, and we will. Mark Daniels is in Vegas, actually, because of the work he does for UCF, but he'll join us in about 8 to 10 minutes in a moment. Bruce Feldman at 5 o'clock or so on his mock draft, the first round, and all of what college coaches have told him. Who would you rather listen to? And I know most likely the answer, but just a thought. If you were doing a mock draft, would you listen to what the pro scouts are telling you or what the college coaches all about? Not just the ones that, like, for example, Colorado, whoever the players are for them, they got a bunch of them. Who would you rather listen to, the pro scouts or the college football coaches?
The pro scouts, because I feel like they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
I feel like the college coaches are going to probably tell the Ravens head coach, or John Harbaugh, they'll probably tell him the truth in a closed-door meeting, but
there you go.
On camera.
I'm glad you clarified that.
This guy really plays hard, and he's a 5-engine guy, and he's like, this and that, and then like you hear like, this dude really hated that guy actually, but he wasn't going to say that on camera. So yeah, I would rather talk to the NFL scouts who don't have any reason to whitewash it in any way, shape, or form.
I bring that up because I'll never forget. Remember when, and this was, I don't know, it wasn't probably the RG3 Pro Day. It might have been before that. And I was able to get into a room with Larry Lacewell Gil Brandt. He took me into the room where there's a bunch of college coaches sitting at what basically are old classroom desks where they used to have a meeting room. And they get up, and the scouts are there. And, for example, whoever it might have been, he's now at TCU, Randy Clemens, the offensive line coach, would get up and talk about certain players that were at the pro day. And then the coaches, the pro scouts, would ask them questions. And it was about motor, about attitude, about everything. And I remember asking Gil Brandt, I said, so how do they know they're telling the truth? And Gil goes, if they don't, it will be a mark on their, like, no one will trust them in the future. So you're right. They will, behind closed doors, have this particular thing, and then they're not going to, like, throw kids under the bus. You don't do that very often, unless it's just something that you can't help. But that's what's – I love being in that meeting. I learned as much in that time than I have in anything else probably when it comes to the draft.
I'll put it this way. I don't really trust anything college coaches say at face value. I mean, when they're doing a press conference or standing at a microphone. Behind the scenes, that's a different story. But most of the time, they're just pitching recruits or, stroking their own egos or whatever. So yeah, I don't buy a lot from the podium when it comes to like a deeply personal, like important question like that. Take me off camera, then I'll listen to what you have to say. But on camera, I'm gonna be like side-eyeing you.
I enjoy Bruce's because it does give like really good, and he has a good BS meter when it comes to these things. Obviously, of years in the business, but he gets the scouting reports for the coaches and on the players. Because you go and you put the players in a mock draft, and then he goes and talks to them and gets the scouting reports on it. I think that's really interesting because he's talking to guys who have watched a lot of the film.
Well, it's not just their own coaches either.
Yeah, it's not their own coaches. It's the opposing coach. Like, he talks to a lot of the opposing coaches, which is what I like. It's a very cool perspective to me on that regard, because I would want to know, like, okay, how do I prepare for this guy? How did when you were getting ready for Travis Hunter, when you were getting ready for Ted McMillan, when you were, like, what do you do? Like, what do you do about Ashton Genty? Do you just have to let him get his and then hope that they don't do anything else good the whole rest of the day? Mm-hmm. I mean, because for the first 11 weeks of the season, I think nobody really contained him. He was still getting his. He had like one game that was kind of okay, and I don't even know if that was just defensive prowess or just how that game went and what they were getting early, so they didn't really need him to do as much. So, like, how do you do that? And who tells you that? The assistant coaches or the coaches that coached against him will be like, yeah, well, you do what you can, or this is why I think he's going to be really good. And then they also have, points of comparison of, hey, I was coaching at so-and-so place, and we played this player back in this year, and he compares. I remember we tried to do the same thing against him, same kind of thing. So I like those kind of perspectives. And because there's just a lot of mock drafts out there, they're just guys,
Dane Brugler comes out with his next week.
Yeah.
The finale, along with many others.
He and Matt Miller do a 7-round mock draft. I don't know how to do it.
You probably have to go hide in a cave after a while.
I mean, you probably can, but I will say the thing about this: does anybody grade it afterwards? Like, because honestly, I
think they sometimes cross-check.
Okay, well, I don't know that I've seen like the full 7-round cross-check, but yeah, no, that's incredibly difficult to do. But like, it's also kind of pointless because by the 7th round, there's dudes like, oh, I went to school with his cousin, and we don't really need a 4th safety, but I'm going to make his day and draft him. Like, we see that at least a couple times in that later round. So, yeah, that's definitely an inexact science when you go that deep. So kudos to them for going that far with it when, I think the first couple rounds would be more than enough to tide most people over and leave the rest to be a complete guessing game, because that's oftentimes what it turns into. But it is a fun exercise to look through and not just see the same names that are the first rounders on every single item. To actually explore it a little bit is cool on their part.
All right, when we come back, Mark Daniels, the voice of UC Athletics. And by the way, see how Scott Frost's first couple of weeks of spring has worked out. Reed Geddes at about 4, former Houston guard. I mentioned John Cooper on the NFL draft. Bruce Feldman with his mock draft at 5. Paul Catalina's top 5, and we look at SMU's schedule too today. We are every day 3 to 6 on YouTube YouTube. But thanks to Andrew Valade, he puts up on our 365 Sports Twitter account, and I'll put the link up in the chat room. Now, live on YouTube, we've always told you that. Live on Twitter at 365 Sports YT, we've pretty much always told you that. But now Instagram and TikTok. So all of those options for you and more to come. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. And it could just be that there's something missing from you when it comes to your energy. You're kind of, I don't know, you don't have to be lethargic, but you just don't have that get up and go. Your diet's fine. You might be very fit. You might work out. You might have all of what you need, but something's not quite there. It also could be ED in your sex drive. It also could be your sleeping habits and other things too, because that is affected by low testosterone with 1 out of every 3 or 4 men. Dr. Petty can help you out. Go to PettyClinicalOT.com. Tell him I sent you. Tell him what maybe are symptoms that he can kind of discuss with you. And then he will set you up to get your blood work, take care of that, get the results. And if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase it so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be at PettyClinicalOT.com.
To start something new sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get the new 2025 Jeep Compass for just $25,995, or the 2025 Dodge Hornet GT for only $28,995. Save 20% on the 2024 Jeep Gladiators for 2.9% for 72 months, and the Jeep Wagoneer Series 2 gets $11,000 in discounts plus 3.9% for 72 months. Only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
I'll never get used to this.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We'll get Mark Daniels here momentarily, the voice of UCF athletics. Oh, you know what's around the corner, right? If you're a college athletics or college football fan, really a college fan of any sport, the House settlement hearing is on Monday. That's coming after so many months and months, and so many of this and that. That's coming up on Monday. I don't know what the end game is on Monday, or if it's tabled and moved down the road, or is it anything that's going to happen? I know there's going to be some who are there to argue against the House settlement, and you want to hear from everybody. But that is coming up on Monday, so that's something we'll be watching and try to get a couple of people beforehand tomorrow and also on Friday to kind of digest what might happen, at least legally, or what it might mean in the future. We're now joined by the voice of UCF. Nope.
No, we're not. I'll tell you when. It's going right to voicemail. I'm sure he'll call me back in a second.
Okay. He said he's going to call in a couple of minutes. So okay. I what would be great is if they had the hearing and we had a decision by the end of the day, which is what you would hope was going to happen. That's not going to happen, but it sure would be nice. Because how much of a letdown will be? Well, we're gonna meet again in June. No, you're meeting now. You've been waiting for this April the 7th. Get something done. I know it doesn't always work that way, and most of the time when government or big legislation or big people are involved, but I hope they get something out of it. And if it takes all day, it takes all day. Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, joins us on 365 Sports. Mark, a lot going on. Thank you very much for your time. He's in Vegas, by the way. Mark Daniels in Vegas. So, Mark, how would you say the reaction has been to the early part of the Scott Frost tenure?
Oh, I think it's been a big hit among UCF fans just because, change will do that when you come off of wasn't a very good season. And I think bringing Scott back in the history that Scott had led to a built-in honeymoon period. Now, you got to go play football. Scott's been a couple of weeks into practice, and with a big roster overhaul, it's hard to get a feel. You're installing a lot of things, but I think right now Scott is trying to build a culture and convincing his football team to buy into what his coaching staff is teaching them and to work hard every day and let the process begin to take itself. I believe Scott really likes this team in the sense of the type of players that they brought in. UCF was not among the heavy spenders in the portal. What they did is identify what Scott wants to build and get guys in here. Tell everybody, look, we got a wide open depth chart. Now let's go earn it. And it's not that UCF is void of talent. I think the case of we're starting with a new slate. Let's go see who's going to be our best players and build this thing. And then from there, we'll, hopefully by the time we get to September, have a football team that we believe can go out and compete. I don't know if there's a leader in the clubhouse for the quarterback position. I don't know other position battles, but I know that UCF feels like they've got a good base to build on, and everybody loves everything when it's April, and you're optimistic about a season.
Would you call it a battle royale at quarterback because they've got several guys vying for that spot?
Not as a battle royale. I think that there's probably a couple of guys that may have a step or two, over others. So UCF's got a transfer that was at Tennessee, went to Indiana. They brought in that I think fits the part. At 6'4", 220. Cam Fancher's a kid that played at FAU and Marshall that probably just needed weapons around him. He's actually got an incredible arm and, good speed. Dylan Risk got a few starts finishing the season last year. Jakari Brown is a really intriguing 6'4", 220-pound machine as well. So I think what Scott's done is he said, look, let's kind of battle out a little bit. I think Mackenzie Milton, the former UCF quarterback, that's the quarterback coach now, I think is helping to develop a plan for them. If they started a game, if they had a game Saturday, I don't know who would start, and I'm not quite sure when they finish spring practice, still know. But my guess is Scott has an idea who he thinks is the best chance to emerge, and they'll let that play itself out. There's some other areas that are more established. I think UCF's defensive line is going to be pretty solid. I think at the secondary, I think they're going to be better. Guys, for us, again, I said this. Gus was a good man. I think Gus will do well at Florida State. He tried to patchwork something in the transition, which was a double transition. It was transitioning from the American to the Big 12 and to get to that speed and physicality of the Big 12. And then it was a portal era of trying to do that where you were competing against other people. And I think for where UCF was, it just didn't line up. And now I think it's a little bit more about player development, multi-year plan, and players that get that and players that you believe are going to come and want to play and not come play and hunt for the next place to go, which is tough in this current market.
Mark, anything just about Scott Frost and his presence and just his demeanor and all of that, that strikes you as maybe different or evolved from 7 years ago when he was last in that saddle?
There's a lot that's very similar to Scott. I knew Scott well when he was here. It's been great to reconnect with him. The dry sense of humor, the quick wit guy, the guy that loves to play trivia games, the guy that has a little bit of a different perspective on life. That's the same Scott, but it's a much more mature Scott. He went through a lot, obviously, in Nebraska, I think on the field and even dealing with some other things. His family's front and present, which, Scott really was big into privacy when he was in Orlando with his wife and his first child was born. And in Nebraska, didn't see much. Now Scott's wife is front and center. The kids who are still finishing up school in Arizona but will move here, they were in town recently and out at practice and hugging dad off the practice field. And that's just a little bit of a different Scott. I think fatherhood and family will ground you with that. But I think I said before the last time I was out with you guys, look, the stars aligned. I'm not quite sure if you'd have told Scott Frost a year ago, hey, something could happen that you probably never thought happened, is that you get a chance to come back to UCF and be the head coach. I don't think Scott would have believed that. And then it wasn't until he learned about the vacancy at UCF that it became, wow. And then he kind of needed to get a quick kick in the butt from his wife that said, look, if you really want this, you got to convince them. They're not going to hire you just because you coached there before, because you're a different guy. And then Scott had to sell, the UCF brass on that. But yes, there are a number of things that are different about Scott, but I think football-wise, I think he's cherishing this opportunity. He wants to get it right. I think his vision aligns with UCF's administration on the way we need to do it. That may be different than Baylor, may be different than Iowa State. It certainly is going to be different than Texas Tech for the upcoming season. So I think that puts UCF in the spot where I'm not saying there's no expectations. I think it's a more realistic expectation to build something, and I think Scott's confident that he can get UCF there.
So you're in Vegas, and that Crown tournament is going on. The basketball.
It really is.
Yeah, I know. And we're keeping you from either losing money at the slot machines or playing golf and looking at just the beauty of Vegas. UCF.
I always have time. You got me, and I said I'm there. What time you need? Okay.
Yes, sir, and we appreciate that very, very much. You're in Vegas. UCF is in the quarters. They're playing Cincinnati, two Big 12 teams. It has been a tough run for Johnny Dawkins at UCF. Does this matter at all, what they do in Vegas, and what is the sense of him moving forward?
Well, UCF hasn't said anything about a change, and Johnny Dawkins is under contract. And look, there are factors that come into play, just like we're talking about football.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's not just at UCF. I think it's in a lot of places where fans say, hey, you've got to do this, and you have to do that. And yet they may not take a step back to think about it. And again, this isn't just about UCF, it's any place. If you're going to make a coaching change in football or basketball and you have a coach under contract, let's go through this quickly. You're paying that coach off, okay? You're paying a staff off. You're hiring a new staff and you're paying more for the head coach and the staff. And that head coach is going on to know how much you're increasing his budget to pay. When you start to add that up, and it starts to get into not just $1 or $2 million, but it starts to get into the $6, $7, $8, $9 million. In this current climate, where most schools are putting the majority of money into what sport, guys? Football.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if you want to make a change, I think fans need to understand there's a cost to that. And right now, everyone's trying to figure out, how do I pay football so I can maximize revenue opportunities there? And how many programs, again, this is in general, have the extra $8 to $10 million to go, you know what? I'll blow out what I have and I'll bring in something new and I'll spend there. It's just an economic model that is a little bit challenging. UCF was among the bottom part of the schools when it came to what they paid players. Everybody knows that's not a secret. And for those, and I'm not saying there's not fair basketball criticism of Johnny Dawkins. I'm just saying take into account the resources. And you say, well, then give more. Okay, what pot do you want to go to? You know, we're still growing a budget to get in the middle part of the Big 12. We're still not yet a full member till we get that first check. We've got to plan for whatever the house settlement's going to be and all that stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts that it's easy for an angry fan on Twitter to go, fire this guy, fire that guy, hire that guy, hire this guy. And it's not as easy as people think it is. But the long-winded answer to the question is, I don't anticipate UCF making a change. I think that they're looking at everybody else. How do I build a roster for next year? And how do I give our head coach the chance to be successful? UCF's leading scorer, and he led the Big 12 in scoring, Keyshawn Hall, is not playing this week. If you were to believe the reports, and I do, Keyshawn has anywhere from 3 to 6 offers that are going to pay him what has been reported between $1.5 and $2.5 million. That's the system we're operating in, and if Keyshawn can get that, he should go. And some of those schools are in our league, some are in different leagues. That's the market. And there's a very good chance that when UCF lands in Orlando, whenever they're done playing in the tournament, there may be 0 players on the roster because it's just where we are in college basketball. And like everybody else, they're out there right now trying to figure out what's the market? What's the market that I can afford? And when you think, okay, here's a guy, and again, example, played in the MAC, averaged 10 points, 7 rebounds. Hey, he think he might be worth what? And I'll just put a number on it. He's worth 150 or 200. Then you find out he's seeking 800,000. Okay. I mean, you know, that's the game we're all trying to figure out how to sort through. And I don't even know what the system's going to be when it all settles. And we'll see. But yeah, UCF's got Cincinnati in this event. And, you know, you keep playing basketball and see what might happen. Cincinnati's lost no players for this event. And most believe it's because they backloaded payments. So their guys are here. If they want to get that last check, good for them. I mean, if the system worked for them, UCF's got 8.5 guys able to play and 2 guys that average 1 and 2 points in a big game yesterday. And that's just kind of what you get with the rosters out here in Vegas.
Is it almost like a bowl game in that regard now, where you got guys who are averaging 1 and 2 points, just like if you play a bowl game, you have guys go in the portal, opt out of a bowl game. Now, all of a sudden, the guy who scores 2 better score 12 because the guy who scored 12 is in the portal.
UCF's 2 key players today are in the portal. Now, those are guys who want a chance to play. And they might be best served to go find, you know, a good mid-major that they could play 25, 28 minutes a game. And, you know, they're not high-paid guys for UCF. I mean, good guys had good games yesterday, so I understand that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, the answer to the question is this is equivalent to like a 6-6 bowl game. The appeal, one, is they paid for everything. UCF paid for nothing. Airlines covered, hotels covered, buses covered, food, and so they came out here. It's a chance to play. I will say this, okay, and I'm kind of speculating in this crazy world. This event's not put on by accident by Fox. And my point is, they have 16 teams that came out here. They brought their A teams out here, their production team and broadcast team. They're playing games at MGM Grand and at the T-Mobile. What I mean by that is there's a reason that Fox chose to do this. Part of it is they want content during the week leading up to the Final Four. In this world, guys, I'm just throwing out a scenario. I talked about this in my show. If somebody came along and said, guys, we want to create a brand new tournament at the end of the year, and we're going to throw tens of millions of dollars, and you put in front of a bunch of 18 and 22-year-olds and said, hey, we go play this event, and it's a 16-team tournament, and they're going to pay you X amount of million just for getting in, and then each win you advance. And you told somebody that they could make $15 to $20 million for players if they won a 4-round tournament in Las Vegas to spend a week. How's that team vote going to go when somebody goes, hey, how much did we make to travel from Seattle to Newark to San Antonio for the NCAA tournament? And they'll say, well, your team got 6 units. And it's, no, how much do the players make? Well, the answer is 0. You tell me how that players' vote's going to go the next time when somebody puts $20 million on the table versus 0.
Never thought of it
I don't
that
think
way.
this is a mistake that Fox put this tournament together. I think that in this crazy world of what we're doing, this Players Era event in November is going to have 32 teams come out here in 2026, $1 million a team just to show up. I don't know how they turn a profit, but in this day and age, guys, I don't put anything past the idea of the players asking, what's for me? And that probably is going to force the NCAA basketball tournament to answer that question. Somebody's going to cut the nets down Monday and celebrate a championship, and the history books will forever say Duke, Florida, Houston, Auburn national champion. And there's incredible value to that. 18 to 22-year-old kids today would likely ask you, wait, how much could I get? And either A, they're going to pay in the NCAA tournament, or somebody like the group here is going to say, what do you think of this option?
Mm-hmm. Mark, kind of in the same vein of just the outside money part of college athletics that I guess for some's entertaining, but it definitely can get very old. It's not like why we were all fans from the beginning. But it is obviously important, especially with just wherever we end up after all this. So with that in mind, the House settlement, that finalization kind of looming right now, just from UCF's perspective, how would you describe sort of where they feel like they are, how confident they are moving forward if House were to get passed, and just sort of what part of the universe are they living in when it comes to that post-House world that's potentially out there?
Right. So I think it gets approved, and I think within an hour there's 50 lawsuits challenging it. That's on the separate side of it, okay?
Yeah.
The answer to the question is, I'm not saying UCF's in a great spot, but they're in a manageable spot because the projected number of $20.5 million, I think I mentioned before I was on with you guys, half share UCF $18 million, half of that has gone to pay the American for the buyout. UCF has basically been a $9 million school the last couple of years. So if you project the numbers to 45 coming from the Big 12, and you start doing the math, that's $36 million. UCF basically looks at backing out 20.5 out of that to go towards the House settlement and would still increase what they had been getting on the media revenue side. So from that standpoint, they're in a great shape that they didn't have to find a budget line to go, how do we find $20 million from? Now, obviously, you're giving up a big chunk of that incoming dollar that you had anticipated, but it is a much different approach for UCF to say, hey, these are new dollars we weren't making before. We back this out. Now, are they going to pay the full 20.5? I'm not quite sure. Most of these schools who say that actually will. By the time you get done of deciding how much you're going to pay this sport and that sport, again, they may come close to it. They may be several million below it. For example, I'm not giving away secrets. I don't think Scott Frost has spent what UCF had allotted for him, even though you got another spring portal coming up, because their philosophy is I'm not going to overpay. I mean, we think the value of a player is this. So the answer to your question, I think they're in a good spot because of the formula I just explained to you. But there's other things that UCF is working towards, the construction of our new tower in football that's going to generate significant money. So it's those new revenue streams that you're working on in the course of several years. So they'll be in a better position, still working to increase the budget. But the answer to your question is they're not panicking, going, where do we find $20 million when they've got this new windfall of money coming in on the media side.
Mark, thank you. Enjoy Vegas. I know you will. Good luck to UCF, Cincinnati, 2 Big 12 teams. So somebody's moving into the semifinals. We appreciate it very much. And enjoy your week. That's Mark Daniels, voice of UCF Athletics, with us on 365 Sports. Reed Geddes is going to join us doing break here, Garrett. Sending him a video link to hope get him on very quickly. Reed Geddes, former Houston guard. He's next. This is 365 Sports. And the Baylor Club. God, traded a couple of, 3 or 4 email with our good friend Mike Mosel, the general manager of the Baylor Club. In fact, yesterday evening about various things moving forward. They want us to start broadcasting on occasion inside of their facility. They have premium locations inside the stadium. The only time in which they really don't control all of that is on game day, when the marketing company that handles Baylor does that. The Baylor Club, funny story. So I will host a banquet in mid-May for the Academic All-Stars. And so I got on my debit card a charge that said Club Corps. And I didn't know what it was for. And I was like, man, this looks like it could be somebody got my number. So I called the company. It was Club Corps. They're under Club Corps. And Club Corps, of course, is a place that has a lot of different great restaurants and clubs, for example, like the Baylor Club, various places around college athletics and more, and a bunch of golf courses that you could also play if you become a member of some kind of Club Corps like at the Baylor Club. Membership's available. Tell them that we sent you on 365 Sports, and you will help get a little bit of a discount when it comes to the initiation fee, or some sort of discount on the next time you're there. Great food, great amenities, great opportunities for banquets, speaking engagements, and more. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium on I-35 in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We had former Houston guard Reed Geddes on the show last week as Houston was preparing for the regionals. Now we have Reed Geddes on the show today because they're in the Final Four. They have Duke coming up, Auburn and Florida in the other part of the Final Four. Reed joins us on 365 Sports. Reed, they just battered Tennessee from the start. Defensively, just smothered them. Your thoughts, could you have predicted it in a better way than what they do to move on?
No, I couldn't have. And I'm, nobody can say, oh, I wasn't surprised by 15 points. I keep reminding everybody, Tennessee had to hit a 3 late in the first half in order to get to 15. But we talked about it last week. Look, a team of, well, let me back up because last week I told you there's no way Braden Smith can beat us, and he almost did. that dude for Purdue, I kept going, he can't beat us. It's like, I was texting with my son. I go, see, he just has 6 points. He's like, Dad, he's got like 28 assists. I mean, the kid was unbelievable. But I'll go back to the same thing. The outcome of the Tennessee game doesn't surprise me. I mean, a team of guards is simply they're not going to beat us. They're not going to beat this University of Houston team. However, you get a team that's got a 6'9" superstar who's as good a passer as I've seen in college basketball, along with a shooter on the other side and a 7'2" guy that jumps out of the gym. Those are the teams that give us trouble. But a team that's perimeter dominated, you're just not going to beat this Cougar team.
So, Reed, I mean, Florida and Auburn, I'm not going to knock the matchup. I mean, but they know each other. They've seen each other, so it's not something that we haven't seen before and won't see again a year from now. They're going to play each other all the time. Duke and Houston don't see each other that much, so there's a lot of new here. And both teams seem to have things that could solve the other's skill set really well. So how does Houston attack Duke and make sure that they can keep the scoring down a little bit so that it does not become an absolute ridiculous shootout? Yeah.
I'd be shocked if it becomes a shootout. It's interesting. So just between us, and don't tell anybody I said this. I've got a buddy that I do tons of work with, an attorney up in New York, huge, obnoxious Duke fan, double degree Duke guy, just as obnoxious as can be. And so, we've been talking about this collision course that the two teams were on. And I texted him right after it was obvious both teams, we're going to play in the Final Four. And I said, I'm not going to tell you let the best team win because Duke's the best team. I think the other three are dead even, and Duke's the best team. What I will say is the best team doesn't always win. And U of H doesn't have to be better than Duke. They just have to be better than Duke on Saturday. And does U of H have the skill set that can give Duke problems? Absolutely. The key to the game is going to come down to JoJo Tugler staying out of foul trouble. If he picks up 2 quick ones in the first 2 minutes because he's so amped up about guarding Cooper Flagg, then we're in serious trouble because then we're going to be guarding Cooper Flagg, with one of the, probably won't be one of the other 2 bigs. We'll guard him probably with our 6'7" kid off the bench, Terrence Arsenault, who's been good guarding power forwards, but Cooper Flagg's a whole different deal. Cooper struggled early in the year with physicality and turnovers. If the refs let him play, he is going to see an enormous amount of physicality. I think last week when I was on the show, I was talking about JoJo and what a live wire he was defensively. And now the accolades are starting to roll in, right? National Defensive Player of the Year, and everyone recognizes how good he is. And so, U of H has got to make shots. And just like we talked about last week, they've got 3 kids that can jump up and knock down shots. And, I was telling y'all how good Emmanuel Sharp was. And but for an injury in February, he'd have been the Big 12 Player of the Year. And he's back. He was the most outstanding player in Kansas City at the Big 12 tournament, and he was the most outstanding player in the regionals. And they just seem to trade off. LJ can carry him, Milos Uzan can carry him, Emmanuel can carry him. But that's a long, rambling answer to, and I'll go back where I started. Man, this game's going to come down to JoJo Tugler and foul trouble. Yeah, and you brought him up last week and discussed what he does, and he just, as so many other guys get credit, he gets credit from those like you that understand basketball. Where would you, or how would you, if you wanted to, I don't like to compare players, but who is Cooper Flagg to you that we may have seen in the past? Yeah, it's funny. I've been talking about that with my son that's such a big basketball fan. And immediately I said Larry Bird, and he called me a racist. He's like, oh, man, you can't say it. You can't, on a 6'9" white guy, you can't immediately go to Larry Bird. And I went, okay, all right, let me think about it. Because reality is he's more athletic than Bird. He's more fluid than Bird. No one shoots better than Bird, but he's got, Cooper Flagg's got this beautiful, beautiful release. He passes as well. I don't know that I can come up with a comparison. The best I could do is the only other player who's as dominant in college that I've ever seen was Kevin Durant. Now the two of them are nothing alike, right? But some of those passes Cooper Flagg threw the other night, they were just spectacular. In the thick body, and he's got this mean streak. I mean, he's got a toughness, and he is, golly, he's really, really good. I don't know how you defend him, and I don't know who to compare him to, because he has he's so versatile. Have y'all come up with someone that's not just a 6'8" white guy? No, because I don't want to be a racist. But I really haven't. And one of the things that surprised me about him, and I didn't really watch much of Duke during the year, and then maybe caught a little bit here and there. He is so much, like you said, he's built pretty well. He's not some thin guy. He's built like he's been in the weight room, whether that's naturally or not. But he is a physical freak. As well. Yeah. And like you said, every once in a while he'll bow up those shoulders when he gets a dunk or an and one, and he's got a little bit of that in his neck, if you know what I mean. Yeah, there's no doubt. He's got an edge to him and a toughness, and I think he's underage. I think he's like 19. So here we are. We got kids that are in their 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th years, and they've got a kid that's 18 or 19 years old. Here's the biggest challenge for us, defensively and schematically. We can destroy a perimeter-oriented team. If you've just got a big and you throw it into the big, our double teams are so quick, and our long-arm post players are so active. They can wreak havoc on double-teaming the post, and we can recover and close out. The spot on the floor where our whole defensive scheme breaks down is the high post. And wouldn't you know it, that's where Cooper Flagg's at his best, is at the high post. It's gonna really be a challenge.
Reed, John Shire, from your perspective, I'm curious your thoughts on what he's been able to do. He's in the exact opposite spot as Kelvin Sampson. I mean, he's very new to this. In the Final Four, he's taking over for a legend. Just your thoughts on what his career arc has been so fast.
Yeah, the old adage, you want to be the guy after the guy after the guy, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be the guy after the guy. So you don't want to follow a legend and a Hall of Famer. You want to let one guy come through and gets fired because he doesn't live up to it, and then everyone kind of adjusts their expectations, and you want to be the next guy. Man, Shire's been the exception to that. He has been. I don't think he gets enough credit. I'm gonna say something that could sound stupid to people. His X's and O's are so much better than Coach K's. I mean, his scheming and offense and where I don't ever remember them being a high post dominated team, right? And so he's taking his talent, which is through the freaking roof. That let's set aside the fact that every guy on the team's, a McDonald All-American, but he's taking the skill set of his kids and adjusting what he does. So it's not just I have this system and it's the Duke system and you're going to play this way. He's changed to fit, and that's why they've gotten better and better as the years gone on. And man, I'm not going to love watching them play Saturday. And I hate Duke. I don't ever love watching Duke play. But I sure appreciate what he's done and how they play. And oh yeah, they can defend. Everyone keeps saying, oh, they're an offensive juggernaut. Well, they've also got a 7'2" guy. I don't know how big he is, but jumps out of the frickin' gym, a rim protector. And they play a little bit like, we did back in the day. When you got Olajuwon on the back end, it makes up for a lot of mistakes on the front end, right?
Yep.
You can gamble and trap and you can funnel and you can screw up and you got a guy back there to erase your mistake. And they are really good defensively too.
They have
hadn't even mentioned, I don't know how to pronounce the kid's name, Knuppel.
Knipple.
I hadn't watched him at all. Oh my gosh, that dude's a baller. And he's kind of got that, he's on the perimeter and he's kind of got that edge to him too.
He helped them get off to a really good. He helped them get off to a really quick start in the regional final. He kind of Flag is going to get his, but he was the guy that kind of gave him a little spark off the top. And they're big guys. They're seven. They're big. One of them's big, thick, and it's got a little bit of an attitude. He's not afraid to stare somebody down and knock somebody down. And the other guy's just like you said. He's like a fly swatter back there.
Yeah, they're the complete package, and going back to Kneppel, you look at him and, again, I'm back to being a racist. Oh, he's a catch and shoot white kid on the perimeter.
Yeah.
No. Well, this is a recurring theme, right? God, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But no, he's not. Boy, he will up fake you and take you off the dribble and bounce and back you in and bump you and step back. And then you mentioned the two big guys, and then maybe the glue that holds them together is Proctor at the point. So there's no doubt in my mind they are the best team. But I'll just keep going back to the best team doesn't always win.
So, Reed, I just looked up, several NBA draft experts that I respect and to find some player comps on Cooper Flag. The two best I saw, and when I started thinking about it, Kevin Garnett and Scottie Pippen. Because defender.
I don't see no way. I don't see either one of those.
Yeah, that's the two best I saw that they comped him to. So
they couldn't find another white guy to compare him to.
I guess. Well, there's been a lot of Larry Bird.
Kevin Garnett was a 7-footer, wasn't he?
And he played. Yeah. He played on the perimeter, but coming out, he was all back to the basket. Mm-hmm. He developed.
Let's see. Scotty Barnes is another one they threw out there.
Pippen was
the fact that Cooper Flag's so good and we're struggling this much to come up with a comparator is a pretty big compliment.
Jalen Johnson, Andre Kirilenko is another one.
Or what about the kid at the Celtics, Brown?
Jaylen Brown?
Oh yeah.
He's all around, inside, outside.
Yeah, he is. Physical. He's not just a shooter. He can. Tatum, of course, is an absolute alpha for them when they won the World Championship. Reed, we've had Joseph Duarte from the Chronicle, who's covered Houston for a long time. We had him on to kind of summarize the weekend. Yesterday, we had Galen Robinson Jr., who had 103 wins at Houston, played in 130-something games. He was wonderful. His dad played there.
Galen Robinson's the godfather of all this, the resurgence.
Yep.
If you want a name and a face, you talk about. I always go back to UT. That Rick Barnes, when he had TJ Ford, it was more than just a great player. It was the face of the program, and it made a statement in the state of Texas. Galen Robinson is the kid for us. When we got Galen and Kelvin got Galen, it turned that if you want a trigger point or an inflection point of when our program was resurrected, it's Galen Robinson Jr.
We had him on yesterday. He was on with us by video link, and we had a lot of Houston fans that were watching, and also one of them actually said exactly that Galen Robinson Jr. is the godfather of the renaissance of University of Houston basketball among players, because Kelvin Sampson, of course, is the one that molded this all together. And that was such a great compliment. I guess Juwan Roberts has probably passed him by on a couple of the stats or whatever, who's also an unbelievable player, like Kelvin's son in a way. But
Yeah.
that was cool. I wanted to bring that up to you. This seems to be, now Houston's been good for 5 or 6 years with Kelvin. But this seems to be that it's brought all of the different eras together, this run, and the pride of the University of Houston from the days when you played and in between and now what this team is doing. Do you get that sense too?
Yeah, you know, and I don't know the exact number, but this is their 7th straight Sweet 16. And, you know, they missed out on a Final Four by a Michigan half-court heave and could have made it to the Final Four last year. Lost to Duke when Jamal Shead busted his ankle. And so, you know, I think we talked last week that to get to this point, you got to be good and you got to be lucky, and we've been that. We're healthy. But to answer your question, I tell everybody who doesn't have the privilege of being around this group, this is a high character, high integrity group of kids. You know, Kelvin's been talking a lot this week about, you know, they don't have problems because he doesn't recruit problems and he doesn't tolerate problems. And they don't have any punks. They don't have any. Every kid on that team you look at and you think, God, I'm just so proud that he's representing our program and our school. And I hope the city will jump on board, you know, with this team the way they did with us. You know, that it became such a point of pride for the city. And these are the kind of young men that everybody, you know, they're easy to pull for. And I don't care what happens against Duke. You're playing with house money now. The fact they made it back to a Final Four, it was weird. I was watching the Houston Open on the 16th green in a tent, and I had a huge TV up in front of me watching the game, and I had earphones on and I'm listening, you know, to the radio call. And when it was over, I was almost embarrassed. I was emotional. I like was tearing up and was trying not to look at my kids or you know, my wife goes, "Are you emotional?" I was like, "Yeah, I am. I'm just so proud of these kids and this group and our program."
And you should be. And you've been able to strike it, like somebody said, man. You've been as honest as you could possibly be about it. Know the game, played the game, and now here we are with Houston in the Final Four. Thank you, Reed. Enjoy the rest of the week, and I hope you enjoy the weekend and Monday night too. So good luck with the Cougars as they move into the Final Four. Thank you.
Okay, great talking to you guys.
Yeah. Reed Geddes, former Houston guard, with us on 365 Sports. You get that feeling that it happens that when you have a program, they've been good, but you start to bring back the eras because they're so thirsty. 83 will always live. It's like the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. It's like forever, Paul, when Bobby Bowden was always a hell of a coach, but they couldn't win the national title, or Nebraska with Osborne, or the Rangers in baseball, or whoever. They have been really good and at times hit and miss, but they've had other coaches who have had success, but this is one that they're on the cusp of possibly finally getting over the top. But no matter what, it's been a great run. Been a really good run for Houston basketball. All right, Garrett, thank you very much. John Cooper will join us from Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft on the NFL Draft. Just after 5, Bruce Feldman from theathletic.com and his thoughts about his mock draft in the first round based on comments and discussions and conversations with college coaches about the players who might now just be around the corner and will be a part of the NFL. This is 365 Sports. Coming now into the early part of March, and how many of you, as the year ended or this year began, said, I'm going to get myself in shape. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to lose some inches. I'm going to lose some pounds. And now here we are, the first week in March, and did you do that? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. Personal trainers to help you reach your goals, and they know how to do that. Randall Corley, Christy London, Robin Nelson, Nathan Roach, and Lori Hull are there to help you. To get rid of that little extra that you have around your waist, or to just get fit. Cardio, strength, fitness. Why not now? Don't wait until, well, I'm going to get ready for the summer. Do that now so you can relax and enjoy the summer if you go to the beach, swimming pool, or just stay in shape or get in shape. Also, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness has a bunch of tennis courts, including an 1,100-seat stadium court. They are resurfacing some of the tennis courts. Some of them are done. Some of them are being resurfaced now. And it is spectacular. Britt Coleman, Dixon, John, Holt, Clay, and Kenna all can help you out. And then Rachel Carter, director of pickleball, because pickleball is exploding, and they are ready for you with pickleball private lessons from Peter, Dixon, and also Jody. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, tennis, fitness, pickleball, and more. Do it by yourself, do it with personal trainers, but do it. Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
365 Sports 427. David Smoak with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, 365 Sports every weekday, 3 until 6. By the way, I put up in the chat room the links on how you can watch us. We want to push that as much as we can. And if you want, you can join any of those social media. If you want to just do what we do on the YouTube channel, that's fine too. But Andrew Valade with a little extra assist with what he's done to put that up on in all the various social media platforms.
And if you could tell 9,970 people to subscribe to us on TikTok, we could also broadcast live there, because now we have a TikTok. So we just need 9,970 people.
Well, let's get that done.
Yeah. I mean, a very, compared to the population of Earth, that's it's within the margin of error.
Yeah, it's like that plus and minus 3%.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Roger the Dodger, while we were talking about Houston players, the great players at U of H, he brought up Ralph Sampson. Not many people responded to him. Roger got caught up in the fact that Ralph Sampson played for the Rockets. The Houston Rockets, he was at Virginia. And he apologized in the chat room for jumping the gun a little bit. Nobody blasted you, Roger, so that was very cool. All right, now we're joined by John Cooper, our lad's guide to the NFL Draft. John, the Colorado Pro Day is coming up at the end of the week with Travis Hunter, obviously Shedeur Sanders, and all those receivers and more. How big of an audience do you think we'll see in Boulder, Colorado? Oh.
Audio.
You got us? Let's see. Can you hear us, John?
Can't hear you.
All right.
Just give him a second, Garrett, and see if he can give us a thumbs up when he's got it.
Yeah.
So
sometimes I get in these Zoom links, whether it's with an advertising agency or doing an interview, and it can get a little bit dicey. We'll see if we can get John back. He's been fine every time we've used him in the video link. So we'll see if we can get that done with him. Craig, we haven't talked to you since Friday. So we'll go back to you. Well, John jumps in, we'll get him. But your thoughts overall about the Final Four with two SEC teams, Houston and also Cooper Flagg and Duke?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great for Houston to get to this point, but I think for them it's all about getting over that hump and actually going and hoisting the big trophy. They've been very, very good, but just not at that tip-top level, and so here's a prime opportunity to just win a couple more games. I think the exposure is great, obviously, for their program and thereby the league as well. I maintain that we're, the past couple of years, far too caught up in, like, league stuff, I feel like, as opposed to just teams, and then they just so happen to be in leagues. And I think the fans take the leagues more seriously than the people actually in the leagues, honestly, I think to some extent. But it is good for the Big 12. It is good to have that money coming in. I think the unfortunate part is you feel like you should have two teams.
Absolutely.
Like you should have two teams. And Texas Tech, obviously, I don't know what you guys talked about that
we did
on Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to add more to probably what's already been said, but that was a game that I thought if you would have told me, turn the TV off right now, is there any doubt in your mind that Texas Tech wins this game? I would have said absolutely not with 2 minutes to go. And yet there they were, and you know, we all watched it, the free throws and the threes, and the free throws and the threes, and the free throws and the threes, and that sucked. I hated that for Tech. I hated that for the fans of Texas Tech and those that watch this show. It would have been a lot of fun to be able to talk about them. So on the one hand, great to see Houston go and do what they've kind of steadily been doing. Also, though, kind of need them to take a step even higher. And I think Kelvin Sampson obviously wants to accomplish that as well. But then on the flip side, you did have that yin and that yang of Texas Tech. That was just such a horrific loss. So I think my head was in the same place of a lot of people's of good for Houston. But, man, you could have had a little bit more there if you're Brett, you or Mark.
It is it's devastating. Kim and Katie Rader and a lot of the others that are from Lubbock or Texas Tech alums and fans, they've had a few days. It's going to be tough for them to watch that this weekend. We're now joined by John Cooper, our lad's guide to the NFL Draft. John, thank you very, very much. So on Friday, I think it is, the Colorado has their pro day. And, man, there's some dudes in that pro day, obviously Travis Hunter, Shedeur and company. How big of an audience do you think they'll have in Boulder?
Well, I think with, one of the top quarterbacks for sure, you're going to have anybody that needs a quarterback is going to be there. And Travis Hunter is a tremendous player. Everybody's going to be there because there's other players, obviously, that, could go in different rounds. Shiloh Sanders is a possible draft pick. So there's a number of guys, that are players. And, obviously seeing Travis Hunter in person is again, isn't going to hurt him for sure. He's a superior athlete. So I'm interested to hear how that goes. But again, they're running around in shorts, so you have to take it with a grain of salt.
John, a lot of Jackson Dart hype right now. He's moving on up the charts. I mean, everybody's looking for that third quarterback. Where do you guys have him ranked, knowing that, when teams get desperate for quarterbacks, they can maybe draft them a full round and a half too high?
Yeah, he's our third ranked quarterback, and we have him as a second, third round pick. That's our range that we use. And he's he's a solid player. He's got solid mechanics. He's got a good arm. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes as far as the passing game is concerned. But what is concerning is his last 3 games. He didn't really rise to the occasion, and that's a little bit of a concern. Is it the mental makeup? What is the issue there as to why he played poorly in those last 3 games, including some key situations where they still could have got in the playoffs, and where there's some very bad throws, quite frankly. So he's obviously a good quarterback. He's obviously a skilled athlete. He's a skilled passer. So somebody is going to obviously take a chance on him, and he's going to get drafted. And he could be, before it's over, one of the better quarterbacks in this draft, or the better quarterbacks playing in the league before it's over. You just don't know until you get him in the room.
John, I mean, there's a lot of names that have been, talked about throughout this entire process. As you've delved deeper, who are maybe a name or two of guys that you really like, and maybe they're being talked about a little bit, but not to the extent of a Shedeur Sanders and, Cam Ward and all of these other big-time names that are being focused on? Who are some sort of out-of-the-box type of guys that you enjoy watching so far?
Well, we've enjoyed, talking about the quarterbacks in particular, at different times, we have enjoyed about 5, 6, 7 guys other than those top guys. We've seen what we call flash in guys like Milroe, Will Howard, Kyle McCord, Ewers, even Curtis Rourke and Riley Leonard and Tyler Shaw. I mean, all those guys that we have with draftable grades, including Dylan Gabriel, who's undersized, are guys that have flashed really solid play. And if you go back to, in history, just using Tom Brady as the obvious example of somebody who wasn't that highly regarded, 3rd-round pick, ended up being one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game. Now, do we see that in any of these guys? We're not, we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't say for sure. But we do see flashes of what we call redeeming qualities, things that they do really, really well, that if you can add to that skill set, they're going to be a solid player.
John, I know, again, and I always explain this when we have you on, what you guys do, you're not predicting who goes where. You rank the players, and like we brought up before, you might have 15 to 18 guys that are first-round grades, but you rank them. You don't say, hey, he's going to so-and-so. If I asked you this, how many quarterbacks do you have that have what you think are first-round grades? How many would be in the 2nd round, and approximately how many in the 3rd? Is that something you could break down?
Yeah, that's a valid question. For us right now, the only 2 that have first-round grades are Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And, they're not real high first-round grades. It would be more of mid first-round grades, but understanding that the quarterback draft and the rest of the player draft is 2 different things. Ward and Sanders could very well be picks number 1 and 2. I don't know they will be, but they could be. And even though our grades don't show that. Now, after that, Jackson Dart, the range that we have on him is somewhere in that 2nd to 3rd round, range as far as a grade is concerned. And after that, the next guy for us, and we're probably one of the few that have him this size, Jalen Milroe, as our 4th. And he and Will Howard we have as 3rd, 4th round grades. So we're moving down the line a little bit here. Kyle McCord, Quinn Ewers are the next 2 or 3. Actually, we got 4 guys that are 4 or 5 round. 4th, 5th is the range we've given them. And that's Howard, Ewers, Tyler Shaw, and Curtis Rourke.
What's your evaluation of the first-round wide receivers like Golden, Ibuka, McMillan? Like, maybe Luther Burton, I think, would probably be the 4, right? Yeah, I would say so. We have 4 guys in that first round, and you mentioned all 4 of them. The guy that is probably the most, maybe interesting of that group, is Golden to us. Because here's a guy that, is, how do you say it? He's not the biggest guy in the world, but yet he's got, he's a physical receiver. He can play outside. He can play slot. He's got good speed. And speed is a commodity that you really want to see in a wide receiver.
And, that's what we like about him. Luther Burden is primarily a slot receiver. He didn't have the kind of year that last year we were projecting him as maybe a top 5 pick. This year we're thinking more mid to late first round at this point in time. And he's a slot receiver. So some teams that are looking for an outside receiver and they want to draft him high aren't going to look at him. So that could cause him to slip a little bit in the draft. McMillan, that's the best guy in the draft. He's got height, he's got speed, he's got route running ability, and he's got playmaking skill. So that's the kind of guy, that's the kind of receiver you want, in your room for sure.
John, I think I've asked you about a lot of the Big 12 running backs. I don't know that I've asked you about Devin Neal of Kansas. And so between Scadaboo and R.J. Harvey, and the list kind of goes on. But your thoughts on Devin Neal out of KU, if any?
Well, he's a guy that's got reasonably good speed. We got him at a 4.58, so he's not a burner. He runs with good lean power. He's got some agility in traffic. He's not just a plotter. We see him as in that 4th, 5th round range. We've got a 4th round grade on him. We think that's where he's probably going to go in a great year of running backs. He's a solid football player. He does most things well, including catch the ball. We think he's one of the top 15 running backs on our list. Let's put it that way. Top 15 or 20 running backs in a class that we think is very strong.
The defensive line with Abdul Carter and then obviously Graham from Michigan. Nolan is obviously a highly rated defensive lineman, and then Harmon from Oregon, I'm not using the edge rushers because there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them too. Carter, that's kind of what he does, but how does he compare, in your opinion? And it's obviously Penn State, Micah Parsons, Penn State. Are they similar?
Yes. They both were off-the-ball linebackers at one time in their career, and Micah Parsons played both, his senior year. And you saw a little bit of that with Abdul Carter. He was just learning how to play on the edge this year. And by the middle of the season, he was tremendous as an edge defender. And he plays on the edge with the instincts of a linebacker. So he can chase across the field. He's not only going to be a good pass rusher in our minds, he's a guy that is going to make plays against the run, and he's got very good range against the run, not only on the outside setting the edge, what edge rushers do, but he's going to be able to sift back inside and make plays that way as well. Good chase player, too. He plays with a good motor, and we really, really like him. And, we weren't all that excited about that move to the edge early in the season. In fact, halfway through the year, I wouldn't say we were down on him, but we didn't see him developing as a pass rusher. A light bulb went on in the second half of the season, because if you watch the second half, he really learned, he picked it up, and that bodes well for him, is how well he picked that up. He's a versatile player. He's going to be able to do a lot of things. If you want to play him in the 3-4 and drop him off in coverage, and those teams that play the 3-4 under defense, as a buck linebacker or whatever you call him, a Leo, he's going to be a really good player. So he'll fit in any scheme.
Is Omarion Hampton first round good?
Yes. Make it simple. We like him.
Yeah, I'm curious because, we talked before, you guys don't think that Genty's getting past the Bears, especially given the fact that Ben Johnson is their coach and they like to use running backs. They use 2 running backs better than anybody has maybe in 20 years in the NFL. So for teams that would want one, the next option would be Omarion Hampton?
Yes, that's what we think. Now, we're not the end all on that, but that's just our opinion. We think it's a great year for running backs. We think Travion Henderson is a great back. We think Judkins from Ohio State, the inside and outside guys, we think they're great. Dylan Sampson, at 5'8", we think he's a terrific speed back with great agility in traffic. We really like him. And Scadabo is a different kind of guy. He's just a hard-nosed old school football player. Caleb Johnson, we go on and on about these running backs. And for that reason, we could see a team passing on Genty early and taking one later if they need a running back. And if they really need a position that's not that deep, like the offensive line is a little shaky overall, you might want to take one of those really good offensive linemen early. There's a thought process that we have that maybe the Bears at 10, even if Genty's there, might pass. So we're going to go back and forth with mock drafts and show it 2 or 3 different ways, both in the guide and on a mock draft that's going to come up on the website in a couple of weeks.
So he's the unquestioned number 1 running back, but there are enough at the top of the draft, let's say 3 to 4, 5, as you mentioned, that you can risk not taking him and getting them like maybe with a second first-round pick or somewhere else?
Well, I don't think he's going to get past the Cowboys. Let's put it that way. I say it's possible he'll get past the Bears. I think that's unlikely too. Seeing the offensive mind that you've got running that team right now. But you never know. It just depends on how bad they want to protect Caleb Williams. They want Caleb Williams to develop into a great football player, and they want to make sure he's not just looking for rushmen as he's dropping back to pass. So, I could see them taking a great offensive lineman if they feel that someone like Campbell or Membo is a great offensive lineman over Genty, because there's a lot of value in those guys, especially, when you need depth and you're really thin there. There are other really, really good running backs in this draft.
John Cooper, Our Lad's Guide to the NFL Draft with us. Tetairoa McMillan. And he's got the size. He's got the speed. He obviously was dynamic at Arizona. Who does he remind you of? I'm not sure you're good into not good into it, but does he remind you of somebody else that came out similar to him?
Not really for me. He's I'm sure there are some guys, that we've comped him with, but offhand, I don't have a great comp for him. I think any one of your tall receivers that have played in this league that can run great routes and have decent speed, that would be a good enough comp for me, as far as that goes. He's not Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a top receiver in this draft, but we don't think he's got the skill set of Marvin Harrison Jr. He doesn't quite have the same speed. He's a big kid. He's a big route runner. He can make things happen after the catch. He's just a solid wide receiver.
John, when you first saw just highlights of Ashton Genty back 3 years ago when he was, I think, a sophomore and he popped onto the scene, what was your first thoughts of him? And now that you've seen him, digested everything about him, is it pretty much the same thought or even higher?
It's pretty much the same thought. Well, it's higher because, Boise State has some good running backs, over the years. And, watching him, the thing that I like about him, he's got really good agility in traffic. He's got quick in and out, moves that I like, and he runs with power. Those are two combinations that are really, really hard to find. He's not the most elite Gale Sayers type back. That's always my number one comp for somebody who's got agility in traffic. But he's definitely can make people miss. He can make people miss both, and he can get yards after contact when he's hit. He can bounce off tackles, and he's got some quick footwork that can create a crease that somebody else might not be able to get through.
John, thank you. Appreciate your time. Hope to have you again next week. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Okay, thank you.
John Cooper, OurLads.com. By the way, their top 32 that is out. Remember, they don't have Travis Hunter's their number 1 ranked player. That doesn't mean they think that that's who Tennessee will take. But it's top 10 is Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Tetairoa McMillan, Malachi Starks, Tyler Warren, Armand Membo, he brought Missouri, the offensive lineman from Missouri, Walter Nolan, and Will Campbell. The quarterbacks are 11 and 16. That doesn't mean that's where they think they'll be drafted. That's just the quality they have of how those players are ranked. Paul, Hear what he said, that he doesn't think Gentry would get past the Cowboys?
Oh, no.
You would be need a brown paper sack if he was on the clock and the Cowboys were up. You would.
Yeah,
Would you?
I'll tell you, on draft night, you know what? I'll even just go live on my Cowboys channel during that pick so people can see. I'll just go up in my room, go live, and you can watch me melt down if they don't. There's 12. There's two guys I really like. Well, I guess three. I mean, Omari and Hampton, I could really get behind. He's really excellent player. But I have my heart set on Gentry, and then my safety school is Teteroa McMillan.
Well, that's who our lads. That's who ESPN, the latest draft. I forgot who it was.
I think that if you look at CeeDee Lamb, Teteroa McMillan side by side there, on that, I think that's just that's a good compliment to each other because CD can do everything. He's one of the best in the league. And then Teteroa McMillan is just that big dude who's long strides, gets down the field. He's a first down, touchdown machine. I think that's what they really need at that number 2 spot. And then all these other guys that they have that are no better than number 3 wide receivers can fight their way out for 3 and 4. Okay. The Flournoys and Tolberts and Mingos of the world.
Well, you hear this, that they want somebody that's like glitz and glamour. And they obviously could use the running back. Although Dowdle's going to be a Hall of Famer. They let him go. What's his name?
He's in Carolina now.
No, but Gentry, of course, people would go nuts. McMillan would be a nice fit. But they also, when they really built their team, they had boring picks.
Yeah.
They took offensive linemen, which 2 of them are going to be in the Hall of Fame, right? Tyron Smith and then Zach Martin. Frederick was one late in the first round, who was hellacious player until he had the disease.
I was mad too. You remember when they picked Frederick? Yeah. I was mad. Yeah. And then only that, I was mad at myself later because when I was covering them full time, I would go up there and he was one of my favorite guys to talk to every single
Travis
game.
Frederick?
Yeah, I love talking to Travis. Yep. He was great. And then I was I thought back. I remember the first time I interviewed him. I'm like, damn it, I should have not been so mad about that. I mean, he's one of the easiest guys to walk up and just have a conversation with in this whole locker room.
Now they have Tyler Smith, who looks like he's on his way to a 10 to 12-year career. They have done really well at the offensive line. The Texas guy, who was the one was it Connor
Williams.
Connor Williams. And then now I think that in the end, they just are patient with him. Yeah, with K-State, with Beebe, just to kind of let that thing.
He played really well towards the end of the year, I thought. I think the bigger issue is Tyler Guyton is playing on the wrong side, and I think they're too stubborn to admit that.
Well, maybe that's what.
Maybe he'll get better.
I still, Craig, you weren't here yesterday. We didn't really touch on it because it was not like some of the core of what we do. And this week, a lot of college basketball, of course, the last few weeks too. But Jerry Jones and the agent for Micah Parsons. Did you hear about that?
No.
Paul?
Jerry basically said he was
negotiating. He was being asked about Micah.
Yeah, he was like, me and Micah are working that out. We didn't even need the agent. And then Micah basically said in response,
what else did Jerry say?
I don't need the agent.
I don't even know his name. David Mulligetta, is that right?
He's one of the most popular ones. He knows his name. I mean, he knows. And if he doesn't, it just further implications that Jerry maybe needs to be in a home. But, yeah, he basically said, we're not doing it. And then Micah Parsons, in response to Clarence Hill tweeting out that quote and all that Jerry said at the owners' meetings, Mike's like, no, there's no way we're doing this without my agent. That's why I hired the guy. He knows this stuff.
Okay, I don't know. Who was the guy that just got $30 million as a corner? Who's former LS Stingley with the Texans, right?
Yeah.
So the highest per average salary for a cornerback entering the offseason was, I think, $25 million. And then Mulligetta represented somebody who got 26. All right, so now it's 27. Got 30.
Yeah.
He's going to get a bunch of money. I think that the agent should now make sure the Cowboys have to eat an extra $1 million a year just because of, even though he might know. That's just Jerry.
They need to give him that A-Rod contract where A-Rod could take the jet with the Rangers and instead of Tom Hicks. Like if Tom Hicks was going somewhere and A-Rod was going somewhere, he's sorry, Tommy boy.
and also, one of the other things Jerry said, Craig, was that he said, well, you got to see how the leaves fall. Isn't that kind of what he said last year when it came to CD and Dak and all the others? We gotta
No. You need to make the leaves fall yourself.
Yes.
You
shake
have to
the tree.
You have to be the one who's shaking the tree. He's waiting and seeing it because he's thinking he's going to get a good deal. I'm going to get a good deal. It's going to be great. And that's part of it is he's a little bit addicted to deal making when it's not that hard. You know what the Eagles do? What they say, okay, A.J. Brown, you're going to get an extension. Okay, who's the last guy to get the extension that is the comp to you? We're going to take that. We're going to add $3 million to it.
5% or whatever.
Yeah, we're going to up it. And then here's the structure. And, the other stuff is just calculator stuff at the end of math and cap, gymnastics. And then they give it to him. As opposed to watching 5 or 6 guys get that same deal like they did with Dak, like they did with CD, like they do with everybody, and then going, all right, we're going to somehow get our guy to be cheaper than the previous 4. And they're not.
Hometown discount.
It's never happened.
Yeah.
It has never happened.
Well, and then you have a personality.
Jalen Smith took a hometown discount because he knew he was on borrowed time, and it was one of the most brilliant things that ever happened.
The Notre Dame linebacker.
Yeah, because he knew he was on borrowed
It's really
time.
a miracle story that he played it all. And
But he knew.
Yeah.
Like, he knows how his leg feels.
All right, would you be okay if they don't get Genty and they don't get McMillan, they get Matthew Golden?
Yeah, I guess.
But at 12?
Yeah, I think 12's a little high. If they don't get Genty, McMillan, Hampton, Hampton I think you could trade back for. I'd rather see them trade back and pick up a pick. Let somebody who's desperate for something go up and get it, and then.
And they like that because they get the attention leading up to the 12th pick, and then they trade back and they get the attention twice as much over the next 15 or 20 picks. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we come back, Bruce Feldman, theathletic.com, and his first-round mock draft after talking to so many different college coaches. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Ted Teague sent out some new nuggets for us for the dealership that is always just filled with inventory. Incentives in April, which started yesterday. Hot off the press, buyer's choice during truck month at Alan Samuels in Waco. 1.9% financing on the 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star or Laramie Crew Cab with a combo deal, $10,000 off MSRP and 3.9% financing for 72 months. That's right, $10,000 off MSRP plus 3.9% financing for 72 months. And that's about $15,000 eventually off MSRP. That's your choice. That's what they have. 2025 Ram 1500 Lone Star or Laramie Crew Cabs with a deal of $10,000 off MSRP and 3.9% financing for 72 months. Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager. David Gray there, of course, to also help you out when it comes to new car sales and handling you when you want a car, truck, or SUV at Alan Samuels in Waco, Loop 340 east of 84, Waco, Texas on the south side.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words cards lead to dough made from scratch, and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Bruce Feldman, senior writer, theathletic.com, has been covering sports, college football for a long, long time. His 5th annual NFL mock draft based on the intel from speaking to dozens of college coaches. And he has it out. We have it in front of us. And so is Bruce Feldman. He joins us with Paul and Craig, David Smoak, 365 Sports. Bruce, thank you very much. You are tied in so heavily with the college game, because you also have the freak list, which is amazing, that everyone looks forward to, I think, usually in the summer. And so with this as well, was there any question whatsoever among those you talked to about Cam Ward being the first quarterback taken ahead of Shedeur Sanders?
Ahead of Shedeur Sanders, no. The first pick in the draft, yes.
Okay.
Some of the guys I talked to, including one coach who faced most of the first-round quarterbacks last year, that he saw Jaden Daniels, he saw obviously Caleb, he saw Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix, and this particular coach said I would pick all those guys ahead of Cam Ward. Now, there's a lot he likes about Cam Ward, starting with his competitiveness and his ability to extend plays, playmaking ability, arm talent. But he said he's also really reckless with the football, and he got a little better at that, but I think that's the part that gives a lot of people some pause with him. It's not surprising that he is talked about as a first-round quarterback, first pick of the draft. I mean, it feels like it's always a crapshoot when it comes to quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, if you right now, you would say the Commanders have a much more sure thing than the first pick in the draft last year, which is Caleb, and the jury's still out on Caleb. And look, the jury's honestly still out on like Trevor Lawrence, and there's a bunch of other guys who fizzled out. So, the things I've heard, and again, a lot of these coaches saw both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and faced them, because at one point they were both in the Pac-12 in 2023. And Shedeur, there's a lot they like, but there's also, he takes a lot of bad sacks, and he's not the athlete that people, he's certainly not the athlete that Caleb is or Jaden Daniels, who are the guys at the top of the draft. So the stuff he didn't really get away with last year with extending plays behind a bad offensive line, he's going to have even more trouble with in the NFL against much better athletes than what he saw this past year in the Big 12.
What did coaches tell you about what they would do with Travis Hunter? We were at Big 12 Pro Days. Cordell Stewart / himself was very adamant about coaches shouldn't try to make him one thing or the other. They should just let him be Travis Hunter. What are you hearing from coaches about that?
They thought he was elite at both positions, but that it's harder to find a true shutdown corner than it is a big play receiver. And so I think that's the part where, what does he want to do? I mean, we're in uncharted waters just in that we've seen other truly elite cornerbacks who dabbled on offense, whether it was Charles Woodson or Champ Bailey. We never saw anybody do to the extent he did it to the way he did it of what Travis Hunter did at Colorado both seasons. I mean, he is a remarkable athlete. I think he will be a more of a surefire success in the NFL, whatever position he plays, than anybody else in this draft. I mean, the quarterback rate is dicey when it comes to whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart. Abdul Carter's a freaky athlete, but we've seen speed rushers who get pegged as one-dimensional. Mason Graham's a good interior D lineman, but I just feel like, and then there's offensive linemen that people have their questions about too. I think this guy is going to be an elite NFL player. It's just, will somebody give him the chance to major in both things, or will they say, hey, you're going to be our cornerback and we will give you a package at receiver, just because we've never seen anybody do it in the NFL the way he did it at Colorado.
Another Big 12 wide receiver there in the first round, Teteroa McMillan. Bruce, it seems like the guys that you talked to raved about his play and maybe felt like some of the lazy critiques are maybe overrated to some extent. Is he a guy that's getting maybe a little bit of that pre-draft knock that's not exactly fair to his overall game?
Yeah, some of the coaches I talked to, especially the guys, some of the guys I respect most in here because of their track record, felt that. And they said his ball skills are rare. You're talking about a 6'4", 220-pound former volleyball star who will not run a 40. It's not like he's going to run 4.49. People wonder about just how fast he is, but they see on film he can run away from some guys. The other thing was, as you guys know, when last year in the Big 12, Arizona was awful. Everybody knew where the quarterback was going to go with the football. It was like he was option 1, 2, and 3. That was his best friend out there. He'd been fantastic the year before. And I just think that was a guy that they leaned on so much. I think in the NFL, he's going to be a legit go-to big play guy. If people are saying, hey, he's a better version of Drake London put up some really big numbers last year for the Falcons. I think he's having seen both in the Pac-12 and having seen both, I think he is better than. And Drake London is really good, but I do think this guy is a little more special than Drake London is.
Obviously, Travis Hunter's unique and a freak when it comes to what he can do. I saw some of the quotes from a defensive coordinator that he's a defensive back, but he's also a fantastic receiver. Is he one that, with the game being the NFL, are there still some that are intrigued about will they play him a little bit at times as a wide receiver?
I think they will, because he is a guy who still has some difference-making ball skills. And it depends on how loaded you are outside. I mean, it's not like he's going to end up with the Commanders, but if you're a team that has Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, how many footballs can you spread around, right? But I think he is just such a freaky athlete in terms of, what was he going to run the 40 in? He wasn't going to run it, at the combine. One of the coaches I talked to at Colorado was like, I would guess he's like 4.38, 4.40, which is obviously fast, but it's not like, oh my God, fast. But he said, if you lined up all the fastest guys at the combine, I would bet my money on Travis to win the race, because he just, whatever he's going to jump, he'll jump higher if the ball's up there than anybody else will. And we saw a lot of evidence of that. Just rare playmaking ability. I can think of in the last 2 years, dating back to some big plays he made in the first game that he played in FBS football in the opener when we were in Fort Worth against TCU, just jaw-dropping plays. And he just has a rare knack for that. And I just think he's a little different than everybody else in the draft in that regard.
Who was the player that when you called coaches and asked them about that they raved about the most?
That's a good question. There's a few that come to mind where you get people who just kind of were like wowed by some of the stuff. Armand Membo from Missouri is a young offensive lineman who's super explosive. He did well at the combine, but when he talked about what he did against one of the best young defensive linemen in college football in the SEC from South Carolina, just completely dominated him. And so you see stuff like that where somebody just jumps out and they talk about a guy in terms of just what they think. Jalen Walker from Georgia is another one. You talk to the guys at Texas, they saw him twice. They don't, he's different. I mean, there's a lot of elite edge rusher guys in the SEC, and the guys who face them multiple and they come away with Jalen Walker was like the scariest guy they saw in college football. He was a good off the ball linebacker. He's an even more disruptive and scary edge rusher on third downs. I think he was one that, take Travis Hunter out of this, I think he was one that somebody would say, hey, he might have been the best defensive player and best player in college football given the competition he was going up against.
Bruce, I don't know if there's anything exact to this or not, but did you notice when looking through just all the consolidation and just all of the movement in college football, the rules changes, does it feel like there's a concentration of more of the power schools in the draft, or is it about the same that it's been? I mean, I noticed Genty's obviously one of those non-guys. You had a couple of other players as well, a young man from Marshall, an offensive lineman. But does it feel like it's the same as it's always been, or is this like something else that is slowly, if not quickly, changing and evolving to, I guess, basically be more about the big schools?
I think it's that. I mean, towards your point, though, think about it this way. If I have Cam Ward as the number one pick in the draft, that's a guy who started his career at Incarnate Word, right? Mm-hmm. So, let's credit to Eric Morris and the group down there in San Antonio, because they were the ones who took a chance on him. There's other coaches I talked to for this who were like, yeah, the coach at Baytown Lee turned me on to this kid. We just didn't have enough film for our offensive coordinator to go on, but we liked what we saw. So you see some guys like that. There's a bunch of guys who may have started out at a smaller place and then ended up getting either bigger opportunity or certainly bigger on NIL to bounce to a bigger school. But, you mentioned, you alluded to the one offensive lineman from North Dakota State. I mean, that Missouri Valley Conference and FCS is cranking out NFL offensive linemen. The kid at Marshall was at Virginia initially. There's definitely some character questions that came to light around the combine. Talent-wise, Charles Huff, who is the coach now at Southern Miss, was an assistant at Alabama when they had Will Anderson, and he'd been telling me since the start of the season, this guy reminds me of Will Anderson. And obviously Will Anderson, as you guys well know, tore it up in the NFL, so that's high praise.
Bruce Feldman with us on 365 Sports. So if everybody in the draft needed a running back, how quickly would Ashton Genty be picked? Or would, because of the other positions that are played and what maybe people think about the running back position, how quickly would he actually go off the board?
I think there's a little bit of it's the flavor of the ice cream. There's some guys I know who like him. They don't necessarily love him, to be a top 10 pick. I mean, I talked to some people who rave about Omarion Hampton, who's a bigger running back at North Carolina. They feel like, there's one coach who's been in the ACC for over a decade was like, he's one of the three best running backs I've seen in the last decade. So, and I do think you see enough running backs over time. There's a guy that turns out to be way better in the NFL than we thought. That just seems like it always happens like that. I mean, look, David Montgomery, who we all saw a lot of in the Big 12, was terrific at Iowa State, has been a hell of a player for the Lions, and there's just, it's one of those positions that back when some of us grew up watching the NFL, we remember Franco Harris and Tony Dorsett and Earl Campbell and these are like the bell cow running backs. That era, it's kind of pendulum back a little bit with Saquon, but I feel like, you just don't see it like, oh, we're going to take this guy as a top 10 pick, because there's only so much of the shelf life on the running backs and the way the contracts are set up.
Bruce, this is an interesting way to go about building a mock draft and building your thoughts about it and going through, because, it is a total crapshoot because you have no idea what the teams are actually thinking, and there's so many lies out there. But when you call these coaches you've had relationship with for a long time, do you find it like, do some guys have agendas, or is this one of the things where they kind of just pull the wall down and just give you the straight dirt?
I think because of how I'm doing this one, I'm not trying to say, hey, this is who the Giants are definitely going to take, because I'm not calling the Giants about it. I may have conversations with coaches at the combine for those teams, but those aren't honestly the decision makers. What I'm really trying to do here with this is show to the fans, who a lot of them are more NFL fans than they are pure college diehards. And so I want them to get a clearer picture of what the guys who actually know best about the players. And these are the coaches who either coached them or most of them that are quoted in here are the ones who faced them and game plan and scouted and know what they actually do, what they're actually trying to do to defend them or try to take advantage of them or try to mitigate them. And again, it's not to diminish the work of personnel people or people who are in the draft space, because I think they do a great job. But this is just from that perspective. Now, when I turned this in over the weekend, the Giants hadn't signed Jameis Winston as a quarterback. And I know how you talk to enough people in the NFL, the system the Giants run is not a very easy system to pick up for young quarterbacks. The chances of them taking any quarterback that high up, I think, is probably not great at this point. But it's also like a jigsaw puzzle in terms of if you don't have this guy or whatever. But I think what I'm trying to do with this story, and I think for people who, are curious about the players, this is about as close to a real scoop on what the intel about what coaches actually think about Shedeur Sanders or think about Tyler Ward or think about, you name it, Cam Ward or Travis Hunter or, Teteroa McMillan, all these guys, because I don't think the coaches have any reason to lie. There are a lot of coaches, because I've been doing this for a long time, who are guys that, you had mentioned, I referenced one of the defensive coordinators. Like, I know when this guy's been really spot on about a guy, just because some of the stuff over time. And so I probably put more stock in that guy's words than maybe I do in somebody I've only talked to, for a year or so. So it's kind of an interesting process to go through and back check how right some of these guys end up being.
How many of those and that you have in your mock first round are players that some teams wouldn't touch?
Good question. So, I alluded to Mike Green. That's the player from Marshall's, an edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what, where there's hesitation on. James Pierce Jr. was a really good tester at the combine, ran 4.47 at 245 pounds, and is a productive player at Tennessee. I know there's some character concerns about him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's off somebody's board or not. There's been a time or two where there's been guys with more. I remember a few years ago, I do another draft piece closer to the draft from talking to NFL people and position coaches, and George Pickens, really talented receiver at Georgia who the Steelers took. There was a lot of question marks about him character-wise. And quite honestly, a lot of those things have bared out, and he's made some spectacular plays. He's also, frustrated a lot of people, who are Steeler fans and Steeler, people. And so I think that, you're trying to be responsible how you're putting it out there. Cause also I think if somebody told me, hey, he's off our draft board, and they said it about a player that I hadn't heard anything about, I would be hesitant to put that out there, to be honest, because there's no accountability towards that person. So I don't want to be, potentially used in that way or use the platform that way, because that's not something how I would do it. So, it's a good question, and I think that's the best way I could explain.
No, it's a great way, and I surely wasn't trying to put you on the spot. There are a ton of offensive and defensive linemen. We know you can't really win in the NFL if you don't have a great quarterback, so that's why it's always so much intrigue about that. But there seems to be a lot of guys that will try to get to the quarterback, and even more that will try to prevent somebody from getting to the quarterback. Is this one of the better first rounds when it comes to the offense and defensive line, and either run stoppers, pluggers, whatever, and or the guys that can get to the quarterback?
I think it is a good D-line draft. There's a couple of coaching staffs that I talked to. They may have faced 6 or 7 first round guys between edge rushers and D linemen. You look at, to be honest, the guys at Ohio State, they faced Mike Green from Marshall. They faced 2 potential first-rounders at Oregon on the D-line. They faced 2 likely first-rounders at Michigan. They faced James Pierce Jr., who I think will go first round from Tennessee. I'm trying to think if there was that's already 6 or 7. I feel like there's a couple others. They faced Abdul Carter from Penn State, who could be the first pick of the draft. That doesn't even include Zane Durant and Denai Dennis Sutton, who could be first rounders next year. So There's a lot of really good D linemen in this draft. I don't know if there's a great one, but I think there's a lot of really, really legit top 15 kind of guys out there. It depends on what exactly you need.
So you have Jackson Dart as the third quarterback going, and a lot of experts wouldn't have pegged him with a first-round grade. He may not have a first-round grade, but what have you heard about him from the coaches regarding his viability in the NFL? Because I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about him a little bit. He got a little bit like left in the wash in the postseason of this.
Yeah, I think people like him. I don't think they love him. He's got good size. He's got a good arm. He's a good athlete. He got better at taking care of the ball. There were some issues about him as a turnover guy. The thing I heard people love the most is his toughness. And they think he has some real leadership skills related to that toughness. Now, the downside is this was a team that kind of underachieved. Talent-wise, they probably had enough talent to be a playoff team. They lost to a really bad Kentucky team at home. They lost to LSU. They lost to a pretty mediocre Florida team. You have 3 losses, none turn out to be ranked opponents. That's not good, especially like I said, they had a lot of talent. And the Kentucky team was probably the worst team in the SEC, or one of the 2 worst. You lost it at home. That is a little bit of a reflection of the quarterback. I mean, it's more a reflection of the team itself, but I could see if teams talk themselves out into needing a quarterback. You have Tyler Shuck, who's older, who has a little more injury history. People like his athleticism. They like his arm. They obviously really like his size. But I don't know if they talk themselves into him as a first-round quarterback. I'm not sure they do with Jackson Dart either. But usually, I feel like people, when in doubt, they end up kind of leaning into that. And that's a team that still has some quarterback questions.
Bruce, if you don't mind, one more question that's out of the draft. The House settlement, as you know, that hearing is on Monday that everyone's been discussing for what seemed like forever. What do you expect is going to happen? Or is this just another part? Will there be yet another 2 or 3 months down the road? Or you think there's going to be something that happens in a decision one way or the other pretty quickly?
I think we'll get something heading into the summer, where we're looking at, okay, here's the money that's going to be schools are going to have to figure out how they want to use and everything like that. It just, again, it's tough to read what's going to happen in the courts necessarily, but people have been pointing at this for so long. I don't know if it's going to be cut and dry Tuesday morning. It's like, hey, we know where everything's going to be headed, but I feel like in that direction, it's probably we're going to get a little more clarity over the next couple of weeks.
Well, we hope so, huh? Just so we know what we have going forward, because it's been a raucous 5 years, no doubt, since COVID, transfer portal, NIL, and everything else. Man, thank you. You're the best. Appreciate your time, Bruce. Great job, as always. The amount of sources and the insight that you get is fantastic. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bruce Feldman, theathletic.com, college football, the mock draft. I put it up in the chat room. I think I put up the article. If I didn't, let me know. And then a lot of us, of course, blew it out over the various Twitter feeds that we have, too, on 365 Sports. SMU, we've been trying to get to their schedule since like November. Isn't that right? It seemed like it.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Well, but we have been able to carry this through the spring, now into April. We have SMU as the ACC was the second conference. We're going not quite day by day analyzing their schedule. We'll have that for you. Also, Paul Catalina's top 5 is just around the corner. We appreciate your time. If you have not yet, click the like and or subscribe button. We would appreciate that. And by the way, after the show is over, we put various segments. We put the show up eventually on this channel, but also various segments with what Emery and with what also Andrew do almost every day with various segments we have in interviews as much. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people you can count on for great offerings when it comes to motor vehicles, also great pricing, great sales going on right now over at Richard Carr, celebrating every single month, but especially this month as they get into anniversary savings, and they've been going strong in Central Texas for 26 years to be exact. So they are celebrating 26 years in the area, and right now you can get a 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 SLE, and qualified buyers can save $11,750 on the GMC Sierra 1500 SLE with an eligible trade-in. So $10,000+ for qualified buyers and eligible trade-in on the 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 SLE. There's also, for qualified non-GM owners, $4,500 in savings on the new 2025 Buick Encore GX. They have the lines of Buicks, lines of Cadillacs, they got the GMCs, whatever you're looking for, whatever type of model vehicle. They got a lot of different great options for you. So go and check out some of those deals going on right now during the 26-year anniversary savings event. And also go over there or give them a call or visit the website and know when you do that you're dealing with people that are local owners that run their dealership locally. And so the 26 years made even bigger by the fact that it's all been in this backyard in Central Texas. Do business in Waco in Central Texas with a dealership that gives back to the community. Deal with people you can count on and take advantage of great savings right now during the anniversary savings event at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
Here's that music again.
It's more like 70s like funk music.
Okay. All right. Earth, Wind, and Fire, maybe?
Yeah.
All right.
Parliament.
By the way, we appreciate your time. Craig's back with us today. And we now will finally, after a couple of days off of doing the ACC schedules, get to the red-hot SMU ponies, the Mustangs.
So are you guys just incapable of reading schedules?
No, it felt like that's like me doing the top 5 when Paul's not here all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we did one. Craig and I did one when you were gone.
Oh, but he's here.
That felt fine.
That one was so smooth and like it just really
it really did. It wasn't
well.
like.
Hey, Garrett, can you just sign us off right now?
Hey, don't tempt me after the last couple of days I've had. Right up this door.
No, if you're here, we can do a schedule, whether you're by yourself or whoever. If Paul's not here, we will start doing the top 5 then. Is that what he suggested?
No. Craig, I think the thing is you frame this better than the two of us. You really do.
You gotcha. Well, I appreciate it. So SMU on the docket today as we roll through the ACC, and this has got to mean that we're getting close to starting a new conference here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. I mean, how many we got? What, Wake Forest still left? Who else is in?
You got
Syracuse,
Syracuse, Wake Forest. There's a couple other.
Yeah, so at least three of them. So yeah,
The
Valparaiso.
Virginia school,
Valparaiso.
Virginia. We have Stanford, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and Wake.
Oh, we got another week.
So about this time next week, we'll be starting.
We'll go Big Ten.
Big Ten. Okay, that's the decision made. Big Ten to start next week, and then we'll go SEC, and then we'll do the Pac, whatever that looks like by the time that rolls around, I guess, or maybe we won't if it's still just two schools.
We'll include Oregon State and Washington State. We like that.
I don't know that I'm going to want to get down into like the Missouri Valley Conference in July.
Well,
I'm really not. But we'll see where we are.
Yep.
So SMU coming off of an incredible year for the Ponies, first year in the ACC. Rhett Lashley, a big-time coach who is only going to become a more hot commodity, I feel like, especially if he puts the Ponies in the playoff on a regular basis. But in their first year in the big ACC, that big move they made, pouring all that money in, it paid off handsomely as they were able to play for the conference championship and also make the college football playoff as one of the ACC reps. And quite frankly, had a lot of opportunities to win the ACC in that game against Clemson, that 34-31 contest. So they were right there knocking on the door. Still made the playoff regardless, which showed you how strong of a year they had. But they did have the loss to BYU, which was one that was very interesting that didn't ding them as much as it hurt or didn't help BYU at all seemingly. But that was one of their little Big 12 contests. Interesting thing is they got a couple of those in their non-cons. There's going to be some S-talking between the usual SMU handful of suspects and all of their anti-Big 12 rhetoric versus the Big 12 fans, especially from Fort Worth, that love to poke at them. So let's get right into a couple of those matchups. First things first, though, this schedule will start off with Nevada. Had last year's schedule pulled up. This schedule will start off on Saturday, August the 30th at home. There in Dallas against East Texas A&M, the school formerly known as Texas A&M Commerce, right?
And before that, East Texas State University.
East Texas State. I actually like that better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it's East Texas A&M now, and that's who SMU has up first on the schedule on Saturday, August the 30th. Of course, this is not a full-blown preview, but worth mentioning, Kevin Jennings will be back. I'd imagine there's probably very few players in the entire country hungrier than him to play again and to right wrongs or to just get a new taste in his mouth after the way the season ended. But he's one of several players they've got back. So East Texas A&M, that's a W. But then, like I said, there's going to be some Big 12 SMU smack talk in this first month of the season, because the first of their two contests against Big 12 teams occurs on Saturday, September 6th, literally like a mile almost exactly this direction from where I'm sitting right now. I mean, if we tore this wall down, I could see McLean Stadium, right? From right where I'm sitting right here. Yep. So it's literally going to be right there, SMU Baylor on Saturday, September 6th.
They're at SMU.
They're at SMU.
Sorry. Yes, you're right. So that will not be the case. It will be, you guys should have done this when I wasn't here. It will be in Dallas, so that first game in Dallas. Then on Saturday, September 13th, after playing Baylor, they do hit the road for a couple of games. So the first two games at home, and then it's two road games. Interesting thing about their schedule is that they're one of the few teams that we've come across in doing nearly two of these big leagues now that has just their non-cons all up front. And they're just all right there at the very beginning. We see a lot of the SEC with like the game, in late October, November. We saw some other kind of weird schedules in the ACC, but literally all four of their non-con games right there in the first month of the season. So at Missouri State on Saturday, September 13th is a very unique road trip to be taking. But they will be taking that, and then the following week they'll be back at home on Saturday, September the 20th. The following week they'll be back on the road on Saturday, September the 20th at TCU. So sorry for the miscues here, but East Texas A&M at home, Baylor at home, Missouri State on the road, TCU on the road. That is the first month of the season. They hit their first bye week before conference play on Saturday, September the 27th, so they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for the next chapter that I will get into, but 4 games and then a break, including Baylor at home and TCU on the road.
Having to go to Missouri State's kind of weird.
It's very weird.
But, that's the deal. Baylor and TCU in the old Southwest Conference rematches, and I'm not completely sure how Baylor fans feel about SMU. I mean, they've been kind of an afterthought to them for so long.
I think that if I had to summarize it best, they are very much looking in the mirror at one another in a lot of ways, but I think there's a superiority feeling with Baylor because they're in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And they were probably, along with TCU, pushing as hard as anybody to not have SMU enter the Big 12 at any point. So then SMU goes on the run they did last year, and I don't think that sits well with people. I think there's going to be a lot of bad blood with these 3 Texas private schools in the first month of the season.
Well, yeah, we know that the Skillet game, I mean, that one, there's no love lost. It's just Baylor and SMU play so rarely now.
First game at McLean Stadium was SMU.
Yeah. And then, it just hasn't been that much since then. And they, I would like to see them play more. It's just such a natural thing. I hope it gets rowdy up there. And look, SMU fans, they certainly have taken it to heart that they were left out of things for so long, and that they were there's an enthusiasm there that is kind of unique because nobody else has gone through what that fan base has gone through. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that one because that should be, second week of the season. That's 2 teams with most of their most of their good players from last year back.
So SMU and Baylor, all-time 39 wins for Baylor, 36 wins for SMU, 7 ties. Baylor is currently on a 13-game win streak. So pre-death penalty, SMU actually held a 36-26 advantage in the all-time series. And then from 1989 onward, in the 13 matchups they've played since then, all of those have been Baylor wins. So they've flipped it from a 10-game deficit to a 39-36 Baylor advantage in the all-time. But, 13 straight for the Bears. They played last in 2016. It was Chad Morris and Jim Grobe. You played again in 2015. Chad Morris, Art Briles. 2014, Tom Mason and Art Briles. They played in 2012. So they had a stretch there where they played 4 out of, 5 years, including 3 consecutive, but it'll be the first meeting since 2016. And then obviously the Iron Skillet is always a pretty hot and heavy game. So a couple big-time matchups on the non-con for SMU, and as much of bragging rights and just sort of territory claiming in the state of Texas superiority as you're going to find in college football in these first few weeks, I would think. So 2 big rivalry games, 2 games that you absolutely feel like you would win with your eyes closed, even though Missouri State is weirdly a road game. But that's part of what you do when you create these non-cons. So I was surprised to see that this was not a 2-for-1 either for SMU. This is legit just 1-1. We play you in 25 and 26, and so they'll get the return game in Dallas from Missouri State next year, but don't see that often. So open week September 27th and leads you into the ACC schedule on Saturday, October the 4th, after having a couple weeks to breathe a little bit. And I would think if you're sitting at 4-0 and you've got wins over Baylor and then TCU on the road, you're feeling incredible about things. 3-1, you'd still feel really good. 2-2 would not be off the table by any means, but I think obviously, in light of last year, that would be a big disappointment. So very curious to see where they are after that first month. But when they do begin conference play, it is Fran Brown and the Syracuse Orange on Saturday, October the 4th. The following week, they will again be at home as they welcome in the Stanford Cardinal and whoever their head coach is. The following week, it's weird how their schedule works. 2 home games to start the year, 2 road games following that, a bye week, start conference play, 2 home games to start conference play, 2 road games to start conference play. So they're doing a 2-2 thing through the first few weeks. But when they do hit the road there in mid-October in conference play, it'll be October the 18th at Clemson. And then on Saturday, October the 25th, they will travel to Wake Forest. They don't get a break. They continue for a couple weeks longer, as on Saturday, November the 1st, they will play the Miami Hurricanes in Dallas. So I'd imagine that'll have some spice. Like, what was the crowd like for FSU last year? I don't even know how deep we got into it.
It was thick. I mean, like there were a lot of FSU fans there. We were united but unenthused.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Who won that game?
SMU by 1 billion.
That's right. We had their quarterback on.
Yeah.
Do you remember Florida State in 2024?
Yeah, no. So there were a lot. I mean, like there were a ton of Florida State fans there, a ton. But
Scarlet colors, or did they have the?
Oh no, we showed out. We overbought our allotment. But you know, the ponies trampled us. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of an ass whooping that was not expected when that schedule was first announced. And by the way, when you ask the question, which is probably tongue-in-cheek anyway, of who won that game when it comes to Florida State, the only two times that the answer is Florida State was Cal and Charleston Southern. That's the only two from last year. So
hey, those are some juggernauts.
Charleston Southern. I mean, I don't know if you people have ever heard of them, but because I hadn't.
Yeah.
Well, I honestly had not heard of Charleston Southern until they were on the schedule.
I think I heard from basketball or something.
I watched about 2 quarters of the game, and they were honestly the worst football team I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
They
I mean,
were awful.
FSU decimated them. So as rough as their year was, like every game was either a loss or like a 5-point win over Cal. They beat the mess out of Charleston Southern. So anyways, at Boston College on November the 8th, I got to that point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then –
if you're asking about the Miami crowd, though, I will tell you.
I was asking.
If you're asking about the Miami
that was
crowd,
my point of asking that.
I don't think it'll be very big.
Okay.
They don't travel very well unless it's in state.
And I don't know that there's really like a big contingent of Canes fans in Dallas.
I mean, they'll be like the ones that are
or any big city
that are there, like in any big city. You know, every city like Dallas has. You know, Boston College will have 15 people in Dallas that get together and watch games. You know, like that's just how it is. Excuse me again. I've got the burps.
There's nothing worse than that.
It's awful. Right in the middle of the show.
Hiccups.
It's hiccups. I don't know what it is, but anyway. But Miami, I don't think they're going to roll out quite as many people. But if they are good again, you will see people come out of the woodwork. They do have a tremendous amount of T-shirt fans as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were to bank on where the most cocaine in the United States would be, stereotypically it would be the Miami SMU game in Dallas on November the 1st.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so Miami on November the 1st, then at Boston College on November the 8th closes out that second window. November 15th, their second and final bye week, and then just 2 games to close out the season. So that second stretch, you go from 4 games at the beginning to 6 games nonstop there in the middle. Including 3 road trips in that middle section. But then when you come back all rested up with your final bye week on Saturday, November 22nd, you'll take on Louisville at home. And then on Saturday, November 29th, you will travel not all the way across the country like some other ACC schools have to, just halfway across the country like SMU has to do with basically all of their conference opponents now. Yeah. So it's either to the West Coast or to the East Coast. They will be going to the West Coast to take on the Cal Golden Bears out in Berkeley, which that'll be some snooty tailgating potentially. I know I'm putting like diametrically opposed, almost like SMU stereotypes out here, but they all work together. Trust me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, SMU at Cal to close it out on Saturday, November the 29th. That is the SMU schedule. 4 games bye week, 6 games bye week, 2 games to close it out. The weird road trip to Missouri State. Also traveling just across the way to TCU, to Clemson, to Wake Forest, up to Boston to take on BC, and then to Berkeley to take on Cal. So if you're an SMU fan, and like a lot of college football fans I found, aren't even necessarily fans of the football, but of the atmosphere and of the road trips. Pretty good little road trips for an SMU fan.
You too.
Compared especially to what they were doing a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get to go to the Bay Area. You get to go to Boston, to North Carolina. I mean, yeah, to Clemson, South Carolina. But, you know, I mean, not the best part of South Carolina, but a cool ass stadium for sure.
Yeah.
You know what? You want to know why Clemson's strategy in suing the ACC was better than FSU's?
Because they weren't as arrogant?
No. And here's why. Yes, here's why it paid off. SMU's first game against Clemson is where and when? In the middle of the season at Clemson. SMU's first ACC game ever at home against FSU.
You're damn right, because
FSU was certainly, and you'll never convince me of this, and I don't think it's wrong. I'm actually kind of on Jim Phillips' side. I can see his perspective. Oh, you don't like us as we're making a new schedule and have new teams and want to leave? Okay, here you go.
Remember what the Big Ten did to Scott Frost and Nebraska during COVID?
Yeah, the same thing. Scott Frost didn't deserve that. But by being just open about, let's play the season, that was dumb. But
well, why?
Yeah, exactly. Not him as dumb.
Yeah.
It was dumb for them to do that.
Yeah.
Him being open about, hey, we should play the season when other schools are doing it, that was an unfair punishment. This, I do think, had some... I think it was fair. They were already going to Ireland.
A conference would not ever take sides.
Absolutely, they would. And especially
the Big 12 ever do that?
Yeah.
For Texas for a pretty long time.
Yeah, so it's just wild to see that, because I think that's the thing that when I looked at this schedule jumped out at me, Clemson gets them in the middle and they don't get a big, SMU and the ACC, that's the parade. That's the pomp and circumstance. President Bush came out and they rolled out Eric Dickerson. Not in a Trans Am, though, which I think was a missed opportunity. But
because didn't A&M buy the Trans Am?
Yeah, I guess so.
It wasn't theirs.
You want to get the guy whose father did it? We'll get him on the show.
A&M didn't buy them a Trans Am for it. But no, they rolled him out there. It was this whole big thing about the ACC. So Florida State already not good. And then they're walking into the celebration of SMU's resurrection into major college football. Yeah, that's where you're, it's where they're throwing you into the lion's den for sure.
When we had Mike Buddy on the TCU AD, he was talking about that TCU SMU rivalry, and he mentioned he has not really had much feedback from those who want to continue that, but there were some responses to that after we put that up, and there were some SMU or TCU fans that said, "Well, wait a minute." Some of, again, that might have been 22 people, but there was some response to they want that to continue. Whether it does, I don't know.
I think it would be dumb not to do that. I mean, you're just so close. It'd be stupid to go do what? Play Missouri State on the road, or
or go to another Power 5 and spend money on a home and away. You're right there.
I guess if you want to have the big road trips, going back to that part of the conversation, or the highlights of the schedule is some of the road trips on there. But man. Sometimes it's nice to just drive less than an hour somewhere and watch a football game and drive less than an hour back home and be back home and not be in an airport or whatever. So I just think historically the fact that both schools, let's stop doing this now that we're both in power conferences. Now that the game's the biggest it could possibly be, let's stop playing the game. I could keep going on, but I think the idea of ending that rivalry is just moronic. So hopefully they don't do that. But it's college sports, so money will determine what they do.
Well, you need good TV games. That's going to be a good TV game. So
potentially, yeah. But in terms of who they don't play, I mean, just some of the teams off the top of my head and going through the schedule, they don't play Georgia Tech. They don't play Duke. They don't play Virginia Tech. They don't play NC State. They don't play Pitt. And, I mean, they don't play, I think, Virginia as well. But, I mean, those are just –
UNC? They don't play UNC?
You don't play UNC. Yeah, that was one of the teams I was missing. So, in terms of some of the interesting teams, Georgia Tech, Duke, UNC, NC State, Va-Tech, Pitt, some of the potential contenders there in the ACC, they miss out on all of them. But they do play Syracuse and Clemson and Miami and Louisville, and they do have, a couple of road trips there that'll take them a pretty far ways to Boston and then to Berkeley. So, and then there's, of course, the two Big 12 games right there in the beginning of the schedule, September 6th and September 20th, where there will be a lot of trash talking, at least in this area of the Golden Triangle. Mm-hmm. And if SMU, God forbid, they win those two games, then man, you talk about insufferable. Yeah. And I wouldn't blame them. If they went and beat Baylor and TCU, and especially after a year of going to the college football playoff, they're the most successful of the three most recently. So there's the 2025 SMU schedule highlights and rundown.
But it is like when you have Baylor, TCU, Syracuse, Clemson, Louisville, and Miami all on the schedule. That's a tough schedule. That's a real tough schedule.
Well, let's compare it to, real quick, because I know we got to go here, but let's compare it to if you're buying season tickets for that and just name off the teams that you just named off, I guess.
Baylor, TCU, Miami, Clemson, Louisville.
Yeah, so like 2023, they played Oklahoma in the non-con. They played TCU. And then after that, I mean, they got a top 25, barely Tulane in New Orleans at the end of the year, but Temple and Rice compared to Berkeley and to Boston. I mean, you're going to Philly and Houston, so that's not a bad trade-up. But in terms of the magnitude as well, the game all added into that. Going to Memphis, playing Navy. I think if you're an SMU fan, you're loving life right now. With all due respect to those schools, it's clearly an upgraded schedule. The money speaks for itself, and it's just the newness of it as well that I think is still on this and will probably last a lot longer than it would for other schools because they've been waiting on it so much longer than other schools that you're really going to let it soak in that you're traveling to Clemson and to Miami and to Florida State and all these places. So they're in a good spot. It's a tough schedule on paper. Do they have it in them to, run it back from last year? I don't know about all that. I haven't looked into them that deeply just yet, but they do have Kevin Jennings back pulling the trigger, so they will be an interesting team to watch, and they're certainly a team on paper that, a lot of is expected of. Maybe not a playoff run again, but being in the mix for the ACC, I think that's certainly on the table for SMU again in 2025.
All right, good stuff, man. Glad we got to SMU. We can now move forward to Syracuse and Fran Brown. I did get an email from SID, and Fran Brown's locked in. He's the one that asked them to call. It probably might be towards the end of their spring drills, like a lot of coaches. And so good to hear from Syracuse that we'll get him logged in at some point. When we come back, Paul Catalina. Val Kilmer passed away earlier, and his top 5. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco. I appreciate what they have because what they have is saving you money and getting you the results and your doctor what you need to see when it comes to what is aggravating you. What hurts, what is painful. Is it a ligament? Is it something else, a muscle? Ideal MRI, their state-of-the-art imaging machine will absolutely get that for you. I've been in it. I've been in it for every part of my spine. I've been in it for my stomach. And I've also been in it because a few years back I had rotator cuff surgery, and that showed up too. Ideal MRI, $497 or less every single time, and the average is over $1,100 for an MRI. Dr. Rob Maxey and his partners and the staff, they are fantastic. They really do make that what can be a little bit alarming for some, may even get spooked if you're claustrophobic. I am like that, and that has never occurred inside their MRI machine. No matter what, whether I go in head first, feet first, or whatever, they've done a great job. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco.
You might ask yourself what functional mushrooms are good for. Whether it's lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, shiitake, reishi, they all serve a purpose.
You have ones for neurological health, ones for sleeping and gut health and all these different areas. They pack a powerful punch.
Functional mushrooms are, of the millions of mushrooms and fungi out there, the ones that we can actually ingest and benefit from as humans.
Like all adaptogens, they kind of adapt to what you need at the time that you need them.
We don't even really know that we're suffering. We just don't quite feel right. That's where these adaptogens come in and really start to close the gap and really start getting us closer to how we want to feel.
Functional mushrooms have definitely re-energized me and helped me face each day with a new vigor for life.
Learn ways that functional mushrooms can help you. Go to GetHumble.com.
Use
spent hours selecting your patio sofa. Choosing that grill would have taken weeks. Probably your car needed way more time. For sure, you would have spent months mulling over that pool of yours. Protecting your prized possessions needs no time, though. Just visit coversandall.com, create a custom size per your requirements, pick a fabric and personalize your cover, and leave the rest to us. Premium protection for all that you love.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
That was a dramatic glasses removal, because today on the Top 5, we are ranking the top 5 Val Kilmer roles who passed away after a long battle with throat cancer at the age of 65. Look, he had a lot of movies. This is a dude who went to Juilliard. Juilliard, classically trained actor. And I know if you've seen At First Sight or Batman Forever, you're not going to think so. And as just a little nugget to this, don't ever watch The Island of Dr. Moreau. It's a terrible movie, and it was just wrought with problems. But I would suggest watching the documentary about the making of that he did with Marlon Brando. The movie was with Marlon Brando. It's just crazy, crazy stuff that went on in the making of that movie. Then watch the movie until you can't stand it anymore. But he was an absolutely fantastic actor who had many memorable roles. But I'm going to go through the top 5, and I'm sorry, Garrett, The Doors did not make the cut.
Boo.
Yeah, Garrett's upset. It's in the upper echelon. He was fantastic in The Doors. But number 5, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This movie with Robert Downey Jr., written by Shane Black, who did Predator and Iron Man and Iron Man 2 and The Nice Guys, is an absolutely hilarious detective comedy, kind of a whodunit thing. Val Kilmer plays a character in the movie named Gay Perry, and this is one of the many solid gold lines he delivers. Harry, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, says, "Do you think I'm stupid?" And here he says, "I don't think you'd know how to feed yourself if you didn't flap your mouth so much. Yes, I think you're stupid." He has as many good lines in this as he does in Tombstone. I'm not kidding. He is so funny in this. He's so perfect for the role. And if you've not seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, look, it's Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer and a bunch of other great actors. I highly, highly recommend this movie, and one of Val Kilmer's very, very best. Number 4, Heat. Look, if you haven't seen Heat, like Garrett hasn't, it would probably knock The Doors off the list. Now, granted, he's not one of the main stars of this movie, really. He's more of a supporting character, but he is so crazy and so badass as a criminal in this movie. And you have to have seen Heat. If you have not seen Heat, you absolutely have to. And he is just kind of the cherry on top of Pacino and De Niro and everybody else that's in that movie. But Val Kilmer, fantastic in Heat. Number 3, Willow. Mad Mardigan. He was so good in this when they rebooted the TV series and he couldn't do it because he was ill. Really, really, really affected the whole thing. They had to do a whole plot line where it was his kids and anyhow, wasn't good, but he was really fun in this movie, which without his signature style, I mean, you could see it when they did the series. He wasn't in it. It was missing something. It was missing Val. It was absolutely missing Val Kilmer. And if you're not kind of a sci-fi fantasy movie person, you probably won't like Willow. But Ron Howard, George Lucas, great direction, all of that. Super role from Val Kilmer. Number 2, Top Gun. Yes, Top Gun is number 2 because I think you know what number 1 is. But Iceman is probably would have been his signature role if not for this number 1 movie. And it is one of his 2 true signature roles. He was somehow the villain, but a good guy, and like this conflict he had with Maverick the whole time, and the way they set him off, obviously, in Top Gun Maverick was very beautiful and very good. The building of the tension that, like, he was actually kind of maybe more of a moral center, but you didn't get that the first time you watched the movie, and the jaw snap. No one else on earth can do this. Garrett, can you jaw snap?
Nope.
Nope. I can't jaw snap. Can you jaw snap out there watching at home? No. 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 Jaw snap. Unbelievable. I can't do it. I've been trying to do it for 30 years. 35 years. I don't know. When did this movie come out? 1987? A long damn time. A long time. And number 1, Tombstone. Tombstone and Wyatt Earp came out the same year. Tombstone is a more focused version on Wyatt Earp's life of his time in Tombstone, which is much more enjoyable. Wyatt Earp, a long 3-hour epic. Dennis Quaid plays Doc Holliday in that movie. It was fine. It was good. This is Doc Holliday. This is the reason they're going to have trouble making anything about Doc Holliday from now until the end of time, because he was so good. From the first moment he's on screen to the very last, he's funny, he's sharp, he's poignant, he has quotable line after quotable line. Say when, I'm your Huckleberry, you're a daisy if you do. You know, I have 2 guns, 1 for each of you. Amazing. I mean, he elevated this movie, which was actually wrought with problems itself. They fired the director in the middle, and Kurt Russell had to pretty much do the whole thing, the rest of the thing, on his own, running the movie. It was a little fractured and nuts, but they made it work. They absolutely made it work. My favorite scene in Tombstone is the first one when Wyatt and Doc encounter each other. Billy Bob Thornton is in there, and it is just, I mean, it just kind of encapsulates the character right off the bat and the friendship he has with Wyatt. Just such a great movie, and rest in peace to Val Kilmer. Thanks for the memories, and that is going to do it for the top 5.
Thank you, Paul. Tombstone is among my top favorite movies of all time.
Johnny Tyler.
Not even close.
The Bad Cat.
Yeah, absolutely. I could watch, if I'm watching TV on a weekend and it just happens to pop up, and it does all the time, I'll just start watching it. Doesn't matter what part of the movie it is, just because there's so many scenes I can watch, and it's just they're hilarious, and yet also a little bit of that intrigue too. Garrett, thank you very much. Andrew Valade, Emery Winter, 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 tonight on the local CW. We appreciate our sponsors. Also for Craig Smoak, who's back, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak. Thank you who watch us wherever and however you do. We appreciate you every day. And back tomorrow, we'll be live 3 to 6 right here on 365 Sports, and good night.